Chapter 424. Tang Xiu observed the expressions of the people in front of him and secretly sighed inside. He didn't like to be high profile, but he also didn't want to hide it all the time. After all, these students in front of him would spend 4 years with him. Instead of hiding it from them now, he might as well reveal it to them later. Additionally, when those adopted orphans were sent to Jingmen Island, an idea sprouted in his mind to recruit some capable students in the university and use them for him in the future. Shanghai University was a domestic institution of higher learning. Students who could enter this university, even if they were nerds now, could be trained to be competent for many jobs in the future. Each and every one of them was very smart. Don't dilly-dally, everyone. Let's go back to the dorm and pack up. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and turned toward the dorm building's entrance. Yu Kai, Hu Qingsong, and the others exchanged glances before their eyes fell on Xueqiao. They found that the relationship between Xueqiao and Tan Xiu was really unusual. Xueqiao was very clear about many things they didn't know. Seeing their eyes, Xueqiao quickly turned around and ran toward Tan Xiu. "Big bro Tang, wait for me." However, just as he ran 4 or 5 steps, Yu Kai, Hu Qingsong, and the other 2 pulled him and squeezed him in the middle. Zhao Liang grinned and said, "Old Xue, don't try to play dumb. Tell me, how many cars does Big Bro Tang have? Also, you just said that his villa?" Xueqiao recalled what Tan Xiu had told him. He shook his head and said, "I can't say it. I promised Big Bro Tang that I can't say it. It's all old Hu's fault. I wouldn't have exposed Big Bro Tang's secret if he didn't show off." Tan Xiu turned his head and looked at the 4 people, shouting, "Hurry up! I'll tell you tonight if you want to know. If any of you are late and can't let us gather at the school gate before 6 o'clock, I'll tell Mu Weining how bad you are and how you're not suitable for her. In short, I'll say a lot of bad things about you." Yu Kai, Hu Qingsong, and the others hurriedly let go of Xueqiao and strode toward Tan Xiu. The trio smiled and flattered him again and again, spitting out flattering words as if they didn't cost anything. In the evening, 3 cars were parked at the entrance of the University of Monster Science and Technology. Tan Xiu and the other 4 sat in the 3 cars, waiting for the arrival of Mu Weining and the other girls. Time flew by. It was only a few minutes before 6 o'clock when Mu Weining and the other 3 girls finally arrived. When they arrived in front of the 3 cars, Mu Weining's expression was calm, but her 3 good friends were looking at the 3 cars with surprised expressions. On the other hand, Yu Kai, Hu Qingsong, and the others pretended to be gentlemen. "Tan Xiu, you didn't wait too long, right?" Mu Weining chuckled. "No, we just arrived." Tan Xiu shook his head. "What do you want to eat? It's my treat tonight." Mu Weining smiled and said, "You can arrange it. We can all do it." Tan Xiu nodded and said with a smile, "All right, then I'll arrange it. Let me introduce you to each other." Following Tan Xiu's introduction, everyone got to know each other. Mu Weining also introduced her 3 good friends, the tall Li Xinjie, Jiang Fian, and Hu Wei. "Get in the car." Tan Xiu opened the door and directly sat inside. What made Yu Kai, Hu Qingsong as well as Zhao Liang's group feel helpless was that Mu Weining and her 3 sisters all got on Tan Xiu's Range Rover SUV. Despite their charming smiles, none of them showed the slightest desire to get in their car. How depressing. If I had known this earlier, I would have bought a better car than the Range Rover. Yu Kai muttered resentfully and then got into his car. The car started. As Tan Xiu drove the car away from the campus gate, he heard Mu Weining, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, ask with a smile, "Tan Xiu, you didn't participate in the freshman military training. What have you been doing all this time? I saw Teacher Han yesterday, and she seemed to be very angry after I mentioned you to her." Tang Xiu understood why Han Qingwu was angry with him. After all, she must have been stimulated by his unapproachable appearance when they met before. However, he didn't want to be entangled with Han Qingwu too much. Since she was angry with him, he hoped that she would keep her distance from him in the future. "It's just a small misunderstanding." Tan Xiu didn't want to explain, so he casually said it. Mu Weining's mouth curled up. She had a woman's unique feeling. She felt that Han Qingwu treated Tan Xiu differently. Recently, she had heard some rumors about Han Qingwu and Tan Xiu. She also learned that after Tan Xiu was admitted to Shanghai University, Han Qingwu was transferred from Xingqing No. 1 High School to Shanghai University. Although it was said that people always strive for higher places, water always flows to lower places. Being able to teach at Shanghai University would have a better future than staying at Xingqing No. 1 High School. However, she felt that it had something to do with Tan Xiu. Junior brother Tang, are all the nouveau riche freshmen gathered in your dormitory this year? Land Rovers, BMWs, and Audis. Even many students who have graduated for many years can't afford these luxury cars, right? Jiang Fian was a bit cute. She was also the one who liked to smile the most among the girls. The smile on her face had never left her face ever since she saw him. I really don't know if they're all gathered in our dormitory, Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. But Yu Kai and Hu Qingsong's family background is pretty good. If you're interested in them, I can help you to act as a matchmaker. Jiang Fian giggled and said, We're interested in you. Why don't you take us in? Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, I won't find a girlfriend before I graduate from university. My studies are the most important. Jiang Fian couldn't help but laugh and said, You're really funny, junior brother Tang. Usually, it's girls who use this excuse to reject boys. I didn't expect you to use it now. Let me think about it. When I was in junior high school, I often used this excuse. When I was in high school, I also often used this excuse. University. University boys seem to like great beauties like Wei Ning as well as Xinjie, who has an oval face, and Wei Wei, who has a scholarly aura. I'm not popular. You're very cute, Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. Jiang Fian giggled and said, Does junior brother Tang like me because I'm cute? Cough, cough. Tan Xiu coughed a few times and no longer answered Jiang Fian's question. Fian, don't tease junior brother Tang, said Li Xinjie with a faint smile. Your wife will definitely be jealous if he really launches an attack on you. Jiang Fian stuck out her tongue and giggled without saying anything. Purple Garden. There was a farmhouse in Shanghai's Jingxia district. He once chatted with Qi Nan and heard her talk about this place. It seemed to be very special. When the car drove into the quiet bamboo forest road, in just a few minutes, they saw a sparkling small lake. There were antique pavilions by the lake, and purple lights decorated the environment like a dream. Inside the purple bamboo forest, 80% of the parking spaces were filled with all kinds of cars, many of which were luxury cars worth millions. After the 3 cars stopped in the empty spots, everyone got off. Under the guidance of the handsome security guards wearing earpieces, they led the way to the undulating classical pavilions. Welcome. Please follow me, everyone. The waitress looked sweet. She had already arranged a private room after receiving the security guard's notice. She led the 9 people to the 2nd floor and entered a spacious private room with a beautiful environment. Then, she said with a smile, Everyone, may I ask if you've come to our restaurant to order a set meal? Or do you want to order freely? Tan Xiu picked up the menu on the table and looked at it a few times. Then, he said with a smile, Give us your signature dishes. We brought our own drinks, so give us a few kinds of drinks. All right, please wait a moment. The waitress's eyes swept over the 2 bottles of wine Hu Qingsong was holding. She cleverly concealed her surprise and smilingly retreated. When only Tan Xiu, Mu Weining, and the others were left in the private room, Xue Chao's eyes widened and he exclaimed loudly, Holy shit! Isn't this place way too high-end? Big Bro Tang, why do I feel like I'm dreaming? Ha! Everyone burst into laughter. Tan Xiu was also amused by Xue Chao's surprised expression, as well as his rustic yet innocent words. He walked 2 steps to Xue Chao's side, put his arm around his shoulder and said with a chuckle, Old Xue, your duty tonight is to eat, drink, play, and have fun. After you get drunk, go back and sleep. When you open your eyes tomorrow, you'll know that you're really doing. Ouch, what the fuck? Why did you pinch me? You can feel the pain, so I'm not dreaming, said Xue Chao cheerfully. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing. Although he didn't feel any pain, he still pretended to make a fuss in order to tease Xue Chao. Amidst the laughter, everyone took their seats. Mu Weining was the most familiar with Tan Xiu among the girls, so she directly sat next to Tan Xiu. Yu Kai, Hu Qingsong, and the others wanted to move closer to Tan Xiu, but they became a bit embarrassed after seeing Mu Weiniang's quiet smile. Big bro Tang, where did you go during our military training? Asked Hu Qingsong. I went on a trip, answered Tan Xiu with a smile. Where did you go on a trip? Asked Hu Qingsong with a bit of envy. I went to Jingmen Island and Shinong Ridge, answered Tan Xiu. Hu Qingsong gave a thumbs up and praised, that was really cool. Just look at us brothers. We've been exposed to the wind and sun every day during the military training. But still, we're not as tanned as old Shui. My uncle said that tanned skin is a man's true nature, and the darker they are, the healthier they are, said Shui Chao. Hu Wei rarely spoke, but at this moment, she suddenly said, Shui Chao, did your uncle ever tell you that a man who's too tanned isn't as popular as a pretty boy? Shui Chao raised his hand to scratch the back of his head. He shook his head and said with a silly smile, my uncle never said that. My uncle is also quite tanned. Maybe he doesn't like pretty boys. But I think what he said is wrong. It seems that health has nothing to do with being tanned. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone to heaven to look for my aunt before he turned 50. A smile outlined on the corner of Hu Wei's mouth. She looked at Shui Chao's eyes, and the smile in her eyes was getting thicker. On the last day of this month, I'm begging for monthly votes. Chapter 425. As the appetizing dishes were served on the table, they were all young people and had become familiar with each other through chatting and laughing. However, in order to maintain their gentlemanly demeanor, Yu Kai, Hu Qingsong, and Zhao Liang ate much more elegantly than before, while Shui Chao ate with relish. Good wine, it's really good wine. It's much better than the home-brewed wine in the mountains. Shui Chao gulped down half a cup of God's nectar and sighed in admiration. Tang Xiu secretly rolled his eyes. God's nectar was a simplified version he had made. Countless powerhouses in the immortal world wanted to drink a few mouthfuls of it. How could the wine on earth compare to the fine wine he had researched? He was powerless to ridicule. Tan Xiu shifted his gaze to Mu Weiniang and said, Mu Weiniang, I heard that you helped me sign up for the freshman welcoming party? Yeah, I helped you sign up. Mu Weiniang said with a smile. You're not upset, Tan Xiu, are you? It's nothing. Tan Xiu shook his head and smilingly said, I'm just curious. How did you? I just happened to meet Miss Han. Mu Weiniang chuckled and said, she said that the number of people in your class who signed up for the freshman welcoming party is too few and there are no programs, so I recommended you. Tan Xiu nodded. Have you thought about it? Mu Weiniang said with a smile. What are you going to perform at the freshman welcoming party tomorrow? I haven't thought about it yet. Tan Xiu shook his head and smilingly said, I'll think about it tonight and talk about it tomorrow. Yu Kai suddenly interjected, what's so good about the school's programs? How about we wait a few days and go to a concert? The second stop of the superstar Zhang Xinya's Asian tour is in Shanghai. I'll try to get some tickets for the concert. After saying that, he intentionally or unintentionally looked at Mu Weiniang. Zhang Xinya? Tan Xiu looked startled. He didn't expect to hear her name at this moment. However, Tan Xiu also guessed Yu Kai's thoughts. He probably wanted to go with Mu Weiniang the most, so he shook his head and smilingly said, I'm not going. I'm not interested in those concerts. You can go and see them. Mu Weiniang shook her head and said with a smile, I like Zhang Xinya's songs, but I don't like the atmosphere of the concert, so I won't go. As for Xinjie and the others, they are Zhang Xinya's loyal fans. You can bring them to the concert. Li Xinjie's eyes lit up as she looked at Yu Kai in astonishment. Can you really get the tickets for Zhang Xinya's concert? As far as I know, the tickets for Zhang Xinya's concert have been sold out a few days ago. Even those scalpers on the internet have run out of tickets. Yu Kai was a little disappointed when he heard that Mu Weiniang didn't want to go, but he still smiled and said, actually, my cousin knows Zhang Xinya's agent. When I saw my cousin yesterday, she asked me if I would like to go to Zhang Xinya's concert. Yu Kai, you're really amazing. Li Xinjie said excitedly. There are only 4 days left before Zhang Xinya's concert. You must take us there. Yu Kai smiled and said, don't worry. Time flew by. It was a sumptuous dinner that lasted for more than 2 hours. At the dining table, Yu Kai, Hu Qingsong, and Zhao Liang kept trying to get close to Mu Weining, only to find that Mu Weining seemed to have no interest in them at all. Every time she responded to them, she always looked indifferent. On the contrary, she was full of interest when facing Tan Xiu, which made the three of them feel sour inside. After the meal, Tan Xiu didn't refuse Yu Kai's proposal to go karaoke. He didn't want to spoil everyone's mood when they came out to have fun. After Mu Weining and her 3 dormitory sisters discussed it for a while, they finally decided to go with them. However, on the way to a decent KTV near Shanghai University, Jiang Fian received a call from her boyfriend. When he learned that Jiang Fian was out with her friends so late at night, her boyfriend insisted on coming. After consulting Mu Weining and Tan Xiu, Jiang Fian agreed. At Bailidi KTV, Noda's private room was resplendent and resplendent. A huge LCD screen was playing pop songs. Although they drove 3 cars and were considered drunk drivers, they still ordered a lot of drinks with a fluke mentality. Of course, there were also fruit plates, drinks, snacks, and other things. At first, everyone was still a bit restrained when they sang. But as Yu Kai and Hu Qingsong adjusted the atmosphere, everyone gradually relaxed. Not only did Yu Kai, Hu Qingsong, and Zhao Liang sing several songs, but even Li Xinjie, Jiang Fian, and Hu Wei also sang a few songs. "Big bro Tang, you sing too," Hu Qingsong called out in a clear voice with a thick northeastern accent. Tan Xiu smiled and waved his hand. He then pushed Xue Chao and said with a smile, "Let old Xue sing. I heard him humming a mountain song before. It sounds good." Xue Chao scratched his head and said with a silly smile, "Since Big Bro Tang likes to listen to mountain songs, then I'll sing some randomly. That's right, I don't know how to choose songs. Who can help me choose, Xintianyu?" "I'll do it," Hu Qingsong said with a smile. As the music sounded, the familiar melody reverberated in the box. Xue Chao took the microphone from Yu Kai's hand with a confident smile on his face. "I bow my head to the ravine, chasing the passing years." His rough voice was full of a pleasant charm. Everyone was shocked when Xue Chao opened his mouth. It was good. Aside from it being good, everyone didn't know how to describe it. After Xue Chao finished singing the song, everyone sobered up from the shock. Along with the applause, Yu Kai hugged Xue Chao's shoulder and sighed, "Old Xue, I didn't expect your singing to be so good. You're not worse than those powerful singers. How about you stop studying? I'll set up a music company and be your manager. After I package you up, let's go make money, shall we?" With an awkward smile, Xue Chao waved his hand and said, "No way, no way. I'm just randomly singing. I don't even understand music scores. People will laugh their teeth off if I become a singer. Yu Kai, don't joke with me." In the corner of the sofa, Hu Wei's eyes were brighter when she looked at Xue Chao, and the smile on her face was thicker. A thoughtful look flashed in her eyes, and no one knew what she was thinking about. After laughing for a while, Hu Qingsong looked at Tan Xiu and said with a grin, "Big Bro Tang, it's your turn to sing a song now, right? Also, Big Bell Mu, we have so many people here, but you two are the only ones who haven't sung yet." Mu Weining looked at Tan Xiu and found that Tan Xiu gave her a please gesture. She immediately got up and said with a smile, "Then I'll sing a song. But don't laugh at me if it's not good." Immediately after, Mu Weining chose the song Moon in the Sky. Her beautiful voice, melodious melody, and strong artistic conception were sung incisively and vividly by Mu Weining. "Heavens! Weining, your singing is too good. If you become a singer, you'll definitely be comparable to my favorite singer, Zhang Xinya," Jiang Fian exclaimed with a shocked expression. Just like someone once said, "I don't have much interest in music, nor do I want to be a star." Mu Weining chuckled. "Who is that someone?" Jiang Fian was confused. Pointing to Tan Xiu, Mu Weining smilingly said, "There was once a teacher of a famous music academy in the country who repeatedly looked for Tan Xiu, hoping that he could go to that music academy to be a teacher or a professor. As a result, Tan Xiu said those words to that teacher." What? Everyone present looked at Tan Xiu with disbelief. Going to a famous music academy to be a teacher? Are you kidding me? How old is Tan Xiu? Even if he has deep attainments in music, he's not qualified to be a music teacher, right? Mu Weining, can we not talk about me? Tan Xiu said with a bitter expression. I really don't have much interest in music. I can listen to it occasionally, but if I want to be a teacher or a star, I might as well be killed. Yu Kai came to Tan Xiu's side and carefully observed Tan Xiu with wide eyes. Then, he said with disbelief, Big Bro Tang, is what Beauty Mu said true? Is there really a teacher from a famous music academy looking for you to be a teacher? There is, but I'm not interested. Tan Xiu nodded. Yu Kai's lips squirmed, but he didn't know what to say. Suddenly, he realized that his understanding of Tan Xiu was really too little. It seemed that this classmate of his was very mysterious, no? Suddenly, he recalled something. Big Bro Tang, I remember old Shui saying that you seem to have a big villa and a lot of luxury cars. Is that true? Asked Yu Kai. Tan Xiu hesitated for a moment before he nodded and said, It seems to be true. But those are gifts from my family. So, you're also a rich second generation? Yu Kai exclaimed. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, I prefer to hear you say that I'm a rich second generation. Yu Kai rolled his eyes and scolded with a smile. If you're a rich second generation, then I'm a local tycoon. Tell me, what does your family do? A restaurant owner, answered Tan Xiu. Yu Kai raised his thumbs up and praised, Big Bro Tang, it turns out that you're the one who doesn't show your true colors. We originally thought that you're a poor boy, but it turns out that you've been pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. That won't do. I just looked at the wine list and found that some of them are very expensive. A bottle seems to be more than 5 digits, no? Give us a few boxes to rinse our mouths. Fuck off. Tan Xiu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he scolded. Bam! The private room's door was slammed open as 2 youths walked unsteadily, reeking of alcohol. One of the youths glanced around and his eyes lingered on Mu Weining for a few seconds before they finally landed on Jiang Fian. Fian, it's so late and you're still playing outside. Don't you know I'm worried about you? The youth staggered toward Jiang Fian and then sat down next to her. Jiang Fian furrowed her brows and grabbed the youth's arm, snappily saying, Why did you drink again? Why did you drink like this? I'm fine. The youth waved and said, A few of my fellow countrymen just came to Shanghai University to study, and they invited me to drink. If I didn't go, then I wouldn't have given them face. Your man's alcohol tolerance is very good, and I also have an roue to help me make them drink. Those brats drank so much that they almost hid under the table. Chapter 426. Sitting quietly on the sofa, Tan Xiu watched the drunken youth with a smile on the corner of his mouth. From the way the young man came in, as well as his words and demeanor, Tan Xiu could tell that this man was pretending to be drunk. He looked like he was staggering, but his feet were very steady on the ground, and his eyes didn't have any drunken and blurred charm. Tan Xiu took out a cigarette and lit it up. He leaned back and smilingly said, Is he your boyfriend, Jiang Fian? He drank a lot of wine. Pour them a cup of hot tea to sober them up and take a rest. Jiang Fian gratefully looked at Tan Xiu and nodded, Got it? After saying that, she stood up to pour the tea. However, the youth grabbed her arm and pulled her to sit on his thigh. He hugged her and shook his head, saying, I'm fine. It's not a problem even if I drink a few more bottles. The other youth's eyes had been on Mu Weining since he entered the box. At this moment, he strode over and sat next to her. He grabbed the wine bottle on the table and waved it at Mu Weining, saying with a smile, I didn't expect you to be here, Belle Mu. I wanted to invite you to dinner before, but you refused because you had something to do. Well, it just so happens that I'll present you with a borrowed flower. Let's have a drink. Mu Weining didn't like drinking and didn't touch a drop of wine even on such an occasion tonight. A sense of disgust rose in Mu Weining's heart when she saw the young man's flushed face and the smell of alcohol coming from his mouth. However, she still maintained her calm expression and shook her head. I'm sorry, I don't drink. The youth grabbed her wrist and smilingly said, Belle Mu, wine is a good thing. You can learn it if you don't know it. Come on. Give me some face and I'll pay for all your expenses here tonight. Mu Weining's expression slightly changed. She directly shook off the youth's hand and stood up, saying coldly, "Please conduct yourself with dignity, Zhuojian." Yu Kai and Hu Qingsong exchanged glances and stood up. Just as they were about to take a step toward the young man named Zhuojian, Xuechao grabbed a wine bottle from the table and pointed it at Zhuojian, saying, "Brat, we don't welcome you here. You have two choices. Either get the hell out of here, or I'll open the ladle for you." Zhuojian furrowed his brows and coldly glanced at Xuechao. Then he immediately shouted, "Ma Jun, your wife's friend is very arrogant. They don't seem to welcome us." The youth named Ma Jun's complexion changed. He pushed Jiang Fian away and slapped the table, shouting angrily, "What do you want to do? This year's freshmen are so arrogant?" Tan Xiu didn't expect that the situation would turn out like this. Upon hearing Ma Jun's words, he secretly shook his head. He got up and patted Xuechao's shoulder, signaling him to put down the bottle. Then he looked at Jiang Fian and said with a smile, "We've had enough fun tonight. Let's go back early, everyone." "Jiang Fian, do you want us to send your boyfriend and his friend back to school?" Jiang Fian was furious. The object of her anger was not Tan Xiu, nor was it Xuechao's group. It was her boyfriend, Ma Jun, and Zhuojian. Ever since she and Ma Jun started dating, although Ma Jun usually behaved well, he sometimes went too far. Especially this time, when Zhuojian even groped Mu Weining, which was hard for her to accept. Birds of a feather flock together. She suddenly had a feeling that her boyfriend was always hanging out with Zhuojian. Were the two of them birds of a feather? Just as this thought emerged in her mind, she suddenly felt sick inside. She felt that her boyfriend had a lot of shortcomings, but it was not unbearable. But today, his behavior when he came here as well as his friend's behavior suddenly made her feel that her boyfriend was nothing compared to outstanding people. Appearance. He was not as good as Tan Xiu and Zhao Liang. Even Yu Kai, who looked like a beautiful woman, was more attractive than him. Family background. He was not as good as these people in front of him. After all, they were young people who drove Land Rovers, BMWs, and Audis during their school days. Their family conditions must be very good. Character. She felt a bit powerless to ridicule them. Although she had just met Tang Xiu and the rest today, they seemed to be much more mature than their peers. Ma Jun's calmness, maturity, and steadiness, Yu Kai's innate arrogance, Hu Qingsong's forthright, and Xuechao's simple and honest character were things that Ma Jun didn't have. Comparisons were odious. Jiang Fian looked at Tan Xiu's inquiring eyes. After a few seconds of silence, she suddenly said, "Let's forget it. I have something to say to Ma Jun. Let's go back by car." Tan Xiu nodded. He turned to look at Mu Weining and said with a smile, "What about you? Do you want to go back with us?" "All right." Mu Weining nodded. Zhuojian's eyes were a bit cloudy and uncertain. His angry eyes wandered back and forth between Xuechao and Tan Xiu several times, but he didn't flare up in the end. A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. Even if he hated them inside, now was not the time to retaliate. Ma Jun, on the other hand, smiled and let Jiang Fian support him as they walked outside step by step. At the gate, Yu Kai intended to immediately drive back with everyone, but Tan Xiu stopped him. Instead, he looked at Jiang Fian and said, "Take a taxi and leave first. Pay attention to your safety." Jiang Fian nodded and stopped a taxi on the roadside. When she helped Ma Jun to the car and was about to get in, she found that Zhuojian had already sat in the front passenger seat. She immediately furrowed her brows and said, "Zhuojian, Ma Jun and I have something to talk about alone. Can you take another car back?" "What do you mean, Jiang Fian?" Zhuojian said with a displeased expression. "We're going the same way anyway. What's wrong with going together? You can talk alone in the hotel if you have something to say." Jiang Fian angrily said, "Who said we're going to the hotel? Even if we're going to the hotel, why are you going the same way as us?" Zhuojian shrugged his shoulders and said, "Ma Jun and I have booked a room in the hotel outside the campus. Don't worry. I won't disturb the two of you." Jiang Fian turned her head and looked at Ma Jun, who was leaning on the back seat with his eyes squinted. It was unknown whether he was asleep or not. She bent down and directly pulled him out of the car. Then she looked at Zhujian in the front passenger seat and said, "Hurry up since you're going to the hotel. We don't like untactful third wheels following us." Zhujian looked angry. But Jiang Fian's words were reasonable, so he couldn't refute her. He could only suppress his anger and let the driver drive. Tan Xiu secretly sighed inwardly. He then turned around and said, "Let's go too." After that, the group came to the parking lot, got on the car and left. It was nearly 11 p.m. when they returned to campus. What made everyone helpless was that not only was the gate of the female dormitory locked, but even the gate of the male dormitory was also locked. What should we do? Everyone looked at each other in dismay and forced a smile. Li Xinjie frowned and forced a smile. "I thought that the gate of the dormitory building wouldn't be locked as early as before since the freshmen just came back from the military training. But I didn't expect that it hasn't changed at all. What should we do now?" Mu Weining pondered for a moment and then said, "Let's go to the hotel. There's a 4-star hotel near our campus. We can go there and stay." "Great idea. I agree." Yu Kai and Hu Qingsong called out at the same time with smiles on their faces. Xue Chao frowned and said in a low voice, "I know a 4-star hotel. I heard that staying in such a high-class hotel will cost a lot of money for a night. We might as well go to eldest Bro Tang's place. In any case, we have enough rooms." His voice was not loud, but everyone present could hear it clearly. In an instant, everyone's eyes were focused on Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu glared at Xue Chao snappily. He knew that Xue Chao wanted to save money, but what was the point of bringing everyone to his place? Furthermore, Mu Weining's family was very well off. Let alone inviting everyone to stay in a 4-star hotel for a night, it wouldn't be a problem even if she invited everyone to stay in a 4-star hotel for a year and a half. However, looking at everyone's gazes, he forced a smile and said, "How about we go to my place? I'm afraid we can't live in a room for everyone, but it's not a problem to squeeze a bit." "Where do you live, Tan Xiu?" asked Mu Weining with a confused expression. "I live in the Blue Star Villa complex near the campus," said Tan Xiu. "Blue Star Villa complex?" Mu Weining was surprised. "You have a villa there?" "My family gave it to me, saying that I have a place to stay in Shanghai," said Tan Xiu. At this time, except for Mu Weining who was a bit surprised and Xue Chao who looked calm, everyone else's eyes had widened with disbelief. Blue Star Villa Complex? The most upscale villa complex near the University of Shanghai? The mansion that countless students of Shanghai University yearned for day and night? Tan Xiu's family was actually so generous? Just so that he could have a place to stay in Shanghai, he bought a villa for him? Shocking. Even Yu Kai, who came from a rich family, desperately gulped down his saliva. He raised his thumb and praised, "Big Bro Tang, you're really a mysterious person. The lowest price of each villa in the Blue Star Villa complex is more than 40 million yuan, and some of the villas even cost more than 9 digits. My dad has a friend who lives in the Blue Star Villa complex. I once went there with my dad to visit that uncle. I don't know the specific price, but it's fine as long as there's a place to stay." Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Have you decided? Are you going to stay in a hotel for a night? Or do you want to stay at my place for a night?" Mu Weining looked at Li Xinjie and Hu Wei and found them nodding repeatedly with shining eyes. She immediately couldn't help laughing and said, "Then let's stay at your place for a night." "Get in the car." Tan Xiu called and sat in the driver's seat. Quickly, the 3 cars arrived at the Blue Star Villa complex. Since the security guard knew Tan Xiu, the other 2 cars were directly allowed after a simple registration. When the cars stopped outside the villa's courtyard, the electric gate opened and the 3 cars drove into the courtyard. "There's no space in the garage, so let's park the cars in the courtyard." After Tan Xiu got off the car, he looked at Yu Kai and Hu Qingsong, who also got off. Chapter 427. Hu Qingsong's mouth twitched a few times. He recalled what Xue Chao said before and immediately called out, "Big Bro Tang, we want to see your garage. Xue Chao said that you have good cars here." "Hey, Yu Kai, what are you doing staring blankly?" Yu Kai stared blankly at Tan Xiu. His lips parted and he muttered, "Big Bro Tang's villa is one of the most luxurious villas in the Blue Star Villa complex. I told you before that some villas in this villa complex are worth more than 9 digits. This villa is one of them. Hearing this, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. 9 digits? That was more than 100 million. A villa worth more than 100 million just to provide Tan Xiu with a foothold while he was studying in Shanghai. How rich was his family exactly? Don't stare blankly. Let's go inside. Tan Xiu said with a smile. Hu Qingsong hadn't forgotten the question just now. He quickly pulled Tan Xiu and said aloud, Big Bro Tang, don't ignore my question. Hurry up and show us your garage. I want to know whether old Shui is bragging or not. Tan Xiu hesitated for a moment before he pressed the button on the garage key. In any case, everyone already knew that he had a villa. Wasn't it just a few cars? If they wanted to see it, then let them see it. As the electric door slowly opened, Hu Qingsong, Yu Kai, and the others ran toward the garage door. Only Tang Xiu and Mu Weining remained in the same place. Tan Xiu, you don't seem to want everyone to know that you have a villa here, do you? Mu Weining asked softly with a smile on her face. I'm afraid that money will affect the relationship between classmates, said Tan Xiu with a forced smile. But since Xue Chao inadvertently revealed it, it's not good for me to continue hiding it. Else, they will have a knot in their hearts when they learn about it one day. So let them know. You're right. Mu Weining smiled. Now that they know the wealth gap between you and them, they might only be a little envious and jealous. Those who are envious can be friends, while those who are jealous will slowly drift away. But in the future, when they find out that you have a villa here, a lot of luxury cars, and even that your family is very rich and you are also very rich, they might really have a knot in their hearts. They might think that you don't treat them as friends and hide everything from them. That's right. Tan Xiu nodded. My God. I'm not dreaming, am I? There were 4 parking spaces in the garage and 4 luxury cars. Each of them was worth millions. God damn it. If I had known that Boss Tang had so many luxury cars, why would I have bought such a small broken car? Hu Qingsong's wailing voice, which was filled with a northeastern accent, came from the direction of the garage. Extravagant, too extravagant. Eldest brother Tang is simply a diamond bachelor. Just the total value of these 4 cars was something that many people couldn't earn in their entire lives. Heavens! Oh Mother Earth! Why am I not a woman? Otherwise, I'd have to marry Big Bro Tang and become a rich and powerful wife. Zhao Liang's howl also followed closely behind. Even Li Xinjie exclaimed, These cars are so cool. If I can have one of them, I'm afraid I'll be dreaming for 3 days straight and then wake up from my dream with a smile. Outside, Tan Xiu and Mu Weining exchanged glances. Tan Xiu had a forced smile on his face, whereas Mu Weining had a bit of a playful smile on her face as she said, I can guarantee that if you don't warn them and tell them not to spread it out, I'm afraid that more than half of the students in our university will know that a nouveau riche has come to our university. At that time, you'll be on fire and the number of girls chasing you will be like the carps crossing the river. Don't worry. Tan Xiu forced a smile. I'll find a way to shut them up. Soon after, Yu Kai and the others came out of the garage and looked at Tan Xiu with shining eyes. Yu Kai then bluntly said, Big Bro Tang, lend me your luxury car to pick up chicks later. Me too. Hu Qingsong and Zhao Liang called out at the same time. No problem, Tan Xiu said with a smile. But you must promise me that what you saw and heard tonight must not be spread to others' ears. I don't want to attract unnecessary trouble because of the house and the car. Agreed. Agreed. No problem. The trio promised with smiles on their faces. Scratching the back of his head, Xue Chao said in a muffled voice, I don't have a driver's license and I don't like to pick up chicks. This car seems to be useless to me. If you're diligent in your work, I can help you put in a good word and double your salary, said Tang Xiu with a smile. Long live Big Bro Tang. Xue Chao suddenly became excited. Tan Xiu looked at Li Xinjie and Hu Wei and said with a smile, 2 beauties, I hope you can help me keep it a secret. A cunning look flashed in Li Xinjie's eyes. She stretched out 3 fingers and said, if you can agree to these 3 conditions, I guarantee that I won't reveal half a word about what I saw and heard tonight. You're really ruthless. Tan Xiu forced a smile. Just say it. I won't refuse if I can do it. First, treat me to a week's meal. It doesn't need to be too extravagant, said Li Xinjie with a smile. Second, find time to drive me around the campus with an open-top supercar. Upon seeing that Li Xinjie stopped speaking up to there, Tan Xiu immediately nodded and said, eating is no problem. The task of driving you around can be handed over to Yu Kai and Hu Qingsong. Tell me the third one. I haven't thought about it yet. I'll tell you later when I think about it, said Li Xinjie with a smile. However, as long as you can agree to my 3 conditions, I can help you if you want to pursue our great Belle Mu later. Tan Xiu secretly rolled his eyes inwardly. Although Mu Weining was as beautiful as a fairy, he didn't have the slightest romantic feelings toward her. Pursuing her was simply a joke. Immediately, he turned to look at Hu Wei and asked, "What about you?" Hu Wei said with a smile, "Xinjie's first 2 conditions are my conditions. The third one is that after we graduate, if we can't find a job, you must help us. In any case, you've already helped Xue Chao, right?" Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "If you have the ability, I'll definitely help you." Hu Wei happily said, "A gentleman's word is as good as a whip. Then it's a deal." All right. Tan Xiu nodded. Immediately after, he looked at everyone and said with a wry smile, "I kindly asked you to stay here for a night, but I didn't expect that I would be slaughtered by you instead. Why do I feel a bit unbalanced?" "Ha, hee hee," everyone roared with laughter. After entering the villa, apart from Mu Weining and Xue Chao, everyone else made a fuss. Finally, when everyone got used to it, Mu Weining and the other 2 women took out bedding from a room that was specially prepared for bedding. After making the bed, they went to separate rooms. However, everyone had a good time tonight and came to Tan Xiu's big villa, so they were still full of energy. Under Xue Chao's summon, they went to the chess room and played cards inside. Ring, ring, ring. Tan Xiu didn't participate, neither did Mu Weining. The 2 of them went to the kitchen. After some hot tea, Tan Xiu personally brewed the tea and sent it to the chess room. Then, he and Mu Weining went to the nearby block to buy a lot of snacks and then returned to the villa. "What happened to you?" As soon as the 2 of them came back, they saw everyone coming out of the chess room with ugly expressions on their faces. "Fian just called me. She said that she broke up with Ma Jun and was beaten by him. He also forced her to go to the hotel. When she calls us, she hides in the bathroom and calls us." Tan Xiu's expression changed as he said in a deep voice, "Which hotel are they staying in? Let's go there now." "The Jasmine Hotel nearby," said Li Xinjie quickly. "Let's go." Tan Xiu said. "Jasmine Hotel, room 406. Jiang Fian locked herself in the bathroom. Outside the door, Ma Jun was constantly kicking the door and cursing. It was very unpleasant to hear. "You should give up on that idea. I must break up with you," said Jiang Fian loudly. Because she was very emotional, the wound on the corner of her mouth was affected and she immediately burst into tears due to the pain. Ma Jun kicked the door harder and cursed, "Stinky bitch, have you been charmed by that bastard tonight? You want to dump me? No way. Even if I'm tired of playing with you, you can't escape from my palm for the rest of your life. You bastard." Jiang Fian's heart was like being cut by a knife. The pain made her shiver all over. As a matter of fact, she still had feelings for Ma Jun. If Ma Jun could coax her tonight, maybe she would give up the idea of breaking up with him. However, she never expected that Ma Jun not only hit her, but also cursed her with such unpleasant words. Heartbreak. She had completely given up on Ma Jun. A few minutes later, Ma Jun didn't even kick the bathroom door open because he really drank a lot tonight. Coupled with his ordinary physique, he was so tired that he finally sat on the carpet. Time passed slowly. When the door was opened from the outside, the hotel's lobby manager took the room card and quickly retreated 2 steps. He looked at Ma Jun, who was sitting outside the bathroom door and smelled of alcohol. His eyes were full of anger. Hu Qingsong and Yu Kai were the fastest. After they rushed into the room, they each grabbed Ma Jun's arms and restrained him while Ma Jun was screaming. "Ma Jun, where's Fian?" Li Xinjie and Jiang Fian had been classmates for 4 years and had a deep sisterly relationship. She rushed to Ma Jun and asked with an anxious face. Crack. As soon as Li Xinjia's voice faded away, Jiang Fian opened the bathroom door from the inside with obvious injuries on her face and bloodstains on her arms. She rushed out with tears all over her face. Xinjia. Boo. Seeing Jiang Fian's miserable state, Li Xinjia suddenly felt distressed and angry. She lifted her foot and fiercely kicked Ma Jun's crotch. Amidst Ma Jun's screams, she pulled Jiang Fian a few steps away and hugged her to comfort her. Tan Xiu secretly sighed upon seeing the scene in front of him. He then turned to look at the lobby manager and said, "Call the police. Imprisoning a girl in your hotel. I think it's best for you to call the police." All right. The lobby manager nodded and took out his mobile phone. Chapter 428. Although Ma Jun's lower body was in extreme pain at this time, he was horrified when he heard the conversation between Tan Xiu and the lobby manager. He involuntarily exclaimed, "Don't call the police. I was just joking with my girlfriend. Don't make trouble." Tan Xiu made a gesture to the lobby manager and then sneered, "Joking with your girlfriend? You beat her black and blue just because you were joking? There's even blood on your arm? Look at the footprints on her body. You must have kicked her several times, right? If we hadn't arrived in time, how long would you have kept her in captivity?" Ma Jun's heart was full of fear at this time. He was afraid that these people would call the police because he really did beat Jiang Fian, and it was a heavy blow. Most importantly, he also used Jiang Fian's to threaten her. He brought her here and forbade her from leaving. Once the police were called, he only had 1 year left before he could graduate as a postgraduate student. He would probably be directly expelled from the university. There was even the possibility of a prison sentence. His life would be over if such an ending were to happen. All of a sudden, Ma Jun didn't know where the power came from. He even broke free from Hu Qingsong and Yu Kai's hands and rushed to Jiang Fian's front. He knelt down and hugged Jiang Fian's calf, crying, "I was wrong, Fian. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have drunk so much and hit you. But you want to break up with me. I love you so much that I hate you so much. Please, help me beg them, don't let them call the police." Disgust flashed in Jiang Fian's eyes. She wanted to kick Ma Jun away, but her leg was hugged by him. She could only suppress her anger and heartache and remain silent. Ma Jun didn't get any response from Jiang Fian. He begged again, "Fian, I beg you for the sake of our many years of relationship. I really can't bear to part with you. If you really want to break up with me, I promise you. I'll also delete your and won't let anyone know about it." Pa. Jiang Fian slapped Ma Jun's face. He mentioned the at this time, making Jiang Fian feel ashamed and desperate. Tan Xiu said, "Jiang Fian, it's your choice whether to call the police or not. We will respect your decision." Jiang Fian's expression kept changing. After half a minute, she said bitterly, "Forget it. As long as he's willing to delete those photos and stop bothering me, everything will be over." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "Delete the photos." Ma Jun felt as if he had been granted amnesty. He hurriedly took out his mobile phone from his pocket and handed it to Tan Xiu, saying, "The photos are inside. You can delete them." Tan Xiu did not pick up the phone. He was even more unwilling to delete those photos himself. Otherwise, he would definitely see Jiang Fian's nude body. Instead, Li Xinjia took the phone and handed it to Jiang Fian. Jiang Fian took the phone and quickly found a lot of nude photos of her in the photo album. These photos were taken by Ma Jun when she and Ma Jun got a room outside. If it hadn't been for tonight's incident, she wouldn't have known about it at all. Furthermore, what made her ashamed and resentful was that there were even 2 videos in addition to dozens of photos. After deleting everything, Jiang Fian fiercely smashed Ma Jun's mobile phone to pieces. Then she kicked his hand and cried out with tears streaming down her face, "Ma Jun, we're even from now on. You are you and I am me. We're strangers from now on." After saying that, she pulled Li Xinjia's hand and strode out of the room. Tan Xiu secretly shook his head and also turned to leave the room. Aside from Yu Kai, Hu Qingsong, Zhao Liang, and Xue Chao, Mu Weining and Hu Wei also came out. After a while, Ma Jun's screams came out of the room. It was obvious that Yu Kai and the others had beaten Ma Jun to vent Jiang Fian's anger. The lobby manager did not stop them. He hated men who bullied girls the most. If it weren't for his identity, he would have gone inside to beat Ma Jun. After everyone left the Jasmine Hotel, they drove back to the Blue Star Villa complex. Although Jiang Fian was a bit curious about this place, she was in a bad mood and didn't ask much. It was 12:30 at night. Tan Xiao was sitting cross-legged on the bed in cultivation when someone knocked on his door. When he opened the door in his pajamas, he found Mu Weining standing outside. "You haven't rested yet?" Tan Xiao was a bit surprised. Mu Weining shook her head with a smile. After entering the room, she said, "They're comforting Fian, so I came to talk to you about something." "What is it?" Tan Xiao asked with a smile. "I still remember that you asked everyone to help you keep it a secret tonight," said Mu Weining. "They've raised their conditions, but I haven't, have I?" Tan Xiao looked dazed. He was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he said, "Say, Mu Weining, how can you be like this? I'm already feeling very imbalanced inside, yet you still have the nerve to add fuel to the fire?" "My condition is very simple, and there's only one." Mu Weining chuckled. "What is it?" Tan Xiao asked. "Tan Xiao, the magnificent Tang Corporation's immortal maiden. It's a priceless treasure," said Mu Weining. "I talked to my grandpa on the phone 2 days ago, and he told me several times. He sent some people to line up to buy it, but only a few bottles were bought. In the end, most of them were snatched away by my dad and my uncles. So, can I go through the back door to buy some God's nectar from the magnificent Tang Corporation and send it back to show my filial respect to my grandpa?" So it turns out to be this matter. "No problem," said Tan Xiao with a smile. "I'll call Kong Xia later. Just give me your grandpa's address." "You really agreed?" Mu Weining was pleasantly surprised. "Then I'll transfer the money to your account." "That's right. Is it still your previous account?" "Forget about the money." Tan Xiao waved his hand and said, "You're my cousin's bestie, and we've become schoolmates. Is 10 boxes enough?" A smile appeared on the corner of Mu Weining's mouth as she nodded and said, "That's enough. Since you won't accept the money, do you want me to serve you tonight?" Tan Xiao directly grabbed Mu Weining's arm. Her complexion slightly changed as he directly pulled her out of the room. She looked stunned as he said, "If I were to take the first bell of the imperial capital and the first campus bell of Shanghai University, I don't know how many men will regard me as a thorn in their eyes. I'm a timid person, so don't give me any trouble." After saying that, Tan Xiao retreated 2 steps and closed the door. Mu Weining stared at the closed door with a dumbfounded expression. It took her a while to sober up from her daze. Her beautiful face was like a blooming flower, and her smile was very beautiful. The next morning, after Tan Xiao finished his cultivation, he washed up and dressed up. He then came to the living room on the first floor and found Jiang Fian sitting on the sofa in a daze. "You got up so early?" asked Tan Xiao with a smile as he walked over. Jiang Fian sobered up and looked at Tan Xiao with a smile. She nodded and said, "I didn't sleep well, so I might as well get up earlier." "Tan Xiao, I really have to thank you for yesterday." Tan Xiao shook his head and smilingly said, "It's what I should do. But don't be too sad. I remember a girl saying on the internet that who hasn't met a few scumbags in their life? You just need to polish your eyes and find a man with a good character." "I know." Jiang Fian nodded. "I'm not sad at all, actually. I'm a bit glad that I saw through his true colors earlier. Else, I would have been miserable if I were to marry him in the future." "It's good that you've thought it through," said Tan Xiao with a smile. "Or, take a rest first. I'm going out to buy breakfast." Jiang Fian got up from the sofa and quickly said, "I'll go with you." Tan Xiao hesitated for a moment before he nodded and said, "All right. We have a lot of people today, so we need to buy a lot of breakfast. You can help me get some if you go with me." Jiang Fian nodded with a smile. After a night's rest, the bruises on her face had already subsided a lot. She followed Tan Xiao out of the villa's door. The duo didn't drive and directly strolled out of the villa complex and bought a lot of breakfast in the nearby blocks. "Tan Xiao, can I ask you a question?" Jiang Fian carried a lot of breakfast and asked on the way back with Tan Xiu. If you want to ask, just ask. Tan Xiu said with a smile. Do you have a girlfriend? Asked Jiang Fian. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment as Kong Xia's appearance appeared in his mind. But in a flash, he expelled Kong Xia's stunning face from his mind and shook his head. Not really. Jiang Fian curiously asked, how can you not have a girlfriend with your qualifications? Also, what do you mean by, not really? Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he lightly said, I have a good impression of a girl, but I'm doomed to not be able to give her a status and happiness, so I don't really have one. Besides, I have a lot of things to do, so I don't have much time to waste on love. Let's talk about this matter after I graduate. Jiang Fian looked incredulous and said, You're really a weirdo. Which young man doesn't want to fall in love these days? You have such good qualifications. If you want to find a girlfriend, I'm afraid there will be countless women crying and screaming, right? Love is not a child's play, Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. Once you decide, you must be responsible. I'm not ready to be the responsible person yet. Therefore, I won't accept any women in the world even if they come to me. In fact, I think that people don't necessarily have to fall in love in life. There are still many things in life worth doing. What other things? Asked Jiang Fian with a blank expression. Family, friendship, career, and so on. Tan Xiu said. But if there's love, wouldn't it be more perfect? Asked Jiang Fian. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment and then asked, Tell me, what qualifications do the young people nowadays have to fall in love? Let's take the simplest question. For example, love needs time and money. I think it's better to learn more knowledge while they're still young, so that they can have a foothold in society in the future. As for money, what qualifications do they have to spend their parents' money to fall in love? Tan Xiu paused for a moment. He took out a cigarette and lit it up, and then took 2 deep puffs. His eyes then fell on a breakfast shop not far away, the couple who were busy working there. Chapter 429. Tan Xiu's vision became a bit blurred, as if he could see the busy figure of his mother when she was running the small restaurant. After a while, he came back to his senses and slowly said, I remember reading about such a situation on the internet. In a certain foreign country, once a child reaches the age of 18, most of the parents will let the child receive training and develop the ability to be self-reliant. But in our country, most of the children are pampered since childhood. By the time they go to university, they are already in their 20s, right? At this time, the parents can still provide money for their children to go to university so that they don't have to worry about food and clothing. This is already a great gift. If they use their parents' money to fall in love and have fun, it's better to earn money themselves. After they have a certain financial foundation, they can then look for someone who is worthy of helping each other for a lifetime. Jiang Fian followed beside Tan Xiu and stared blankly at Tan Xiu's somewhat deep and serious face. Her heart suddenly throbbed a bit. This junior brother, who seemed to be in his early 20s, a few years younger than her, was unexpectedly able to say such words, which made her admire him from the bottom of her heart. Suddenly, she felt somewhat ashamed to face her parents because she used their money to study in university without worrying about food and clothing. She even used the money from her parents to buy things for her boyfriend. I miss my parents, Jiang Fian said in a low voice. Tan Xiu turned his head and looked at her, saying with a smile, If you miss your parents, just call them. The deepest affection in the world is the warmth of family. Jiang Fian was silent for a long time. She followed Tan Xiu back to the villa's courtyard and suddenly said, Thank you, Tan Xiu. You're welcome, said Tan Xiu with a smile. After entering the villa's hall, Tan Xiu found that Mu Weining had already woken up. She was sitting on the sofa and playing English content on her mobile phone. Oh, I thought you guys haven't woken up yet. I didn't expect you to buy breakfast. Mu Weining saw Tan Xiu and Jiang Fian, immediately got up and said with a smile. Tan Xiu said with a smile, Getting up early to breathe some fresh air will make you feel energetic for the whole day. Go and wake them up. I'll also wake them up for breakfast. Alright. Mu Weining smiled and looked at Jiang Fian. Fian, are you feeling better? A smile appeared on Jiang Fian's face as she nodded and said, Much better. Also, I discovered a secret. Mu Weining was confused. What secret? Sister Weining, I felt that no man in this world is worthy of you ever since I saw you, said Jiang Fian with a smile. But today, I don't think so. I think Tan Xiu is very suitable for you. You two are simply a match made in heaven. Although he said that he doesn't want a date in university, I think if you try your best to pursue him, he will definitely fall for you. Mu Weining revealed a rare flirtatious charm as she glanced at Tang Xiu and said with a charming smile, I may think that I'm infinitely charming, but it's not easy to conquer this blockhead of a man like him. Jiang Fian's eyes lit up and she asked in surprise, Sister Weining, do you like Tan Xiu? He's the best man I've ever seen, so of course I like him. Mu Weining said with a smile. It's just that he has his own standards and doesn't want to accept me at all. Therefore, I can only be self-aware and hide in a distant place to watch him and continue to worship him. In fact, I think it's quite interesting to be his little fan. Jiang Fian clenched her fists and giggled, Come on, Sister Weining. I believe in you. All right. Don't joke around. Mu Weining smiled. I'm going to wake them up. Tan Xiu could tell that Mu Weining was joking, so he didn't take it seriously. He went into the kitchen and took a lot of tableware. After bringing them to the dining room, he put the breakfast he bought on the table. Quickly, he picked up Yu Kai, Hu Qingsong, and the other two from the bed and threw them into the bathroom to wash up. It didn't take long for everyone to come to the dining room. Wow, Moneybags Tang has turned into a considerate cotton-padded jacket. It's so early in the morning, yet he's already prepared such a sumptuous breakfast. Zhao Liang rubbed his hands and sat on the chair. Hurry up and eat. Food can block your mouth, Tan Xiu said with a smile. After breakfast, several girls ran to the kitchen to wash the dishes. After they were done, everyone took a few cars and rushed to the campus. Especially Tan Xiu's group. After all, they had to report to the classroom today, so they sent Mu Weining and the other 3 girls to the girls' dormitory. Under the watchful eyes of countless people, they drove to the teaching building. In the history department classroom, as soon as Tan Xiu's group of 5 entered the classroom, many of their classmates surrounded them. Most of them looked at Tan Xiu and asked Tan Xiu what big trick he used to escape the devilish life of the military training. Tan Xiu had already made up a good excuse and easily dealt with it. Clatter, clatter, clatter. Along with the sound of high-heeled shoes, Han Qingwu entered the classroom with a stack of materials in her arms. Her eyes swept around the classroom and finally stopped on Tan Xiu for a few seconds. Then, she walked to the podium and motioned for everyone to be quiet, saying, Today is very good. Everyone is here. I've brought the timetable for our next class. I'll post it next to the blackboard. Everyone must remember the content on the timetable and must not be absent from class. Also, if you're interested in other subjects, you can also take electives. Time fleeted by. Dozens of minutes passed by quickly. Tan Xiu sat in the seat below and quietly listened to Han Qingwu's words, as well as the topics she exchanged with other students. He found that Han Qingwu had looked at him many times in these dozens of minutes, and her eyes were fixed on him. Well, tomorrow is the official class time. Everyone, have a good rest today. All the students who have signed up to perform at the freshman welcoming party in the evening must practice well and strive to win glory for our class. Tan Xiu, come out with me. After saying that, Han Qingwu turned around and left the classroom. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. He knew that Han Qingwu would ask him to talk to her alone in another place. He could even guess the content of the conversation between the two of them. In the stairwell, Han Qingwu held the stack of materials and quietly looked at Tan Xiu. She didn't speak and just looked at him. After a while, seeing that Tan Xiu also didn't speak, she frowned and said with dissatisfaction, Tan Xiu, did I provoke you in any way? Tan Xiu shook his head and lightly said. Han Qingwu angrily said, Then what do you mean by that? I called you several times afterward, but why didn't you answer? Besides, look at your current attitude. It's obvious that you have a problem with me. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment and then said, Miss Han, do you want to ask about the last time we met? Yes, I want to hear your explanation, Han Qingwu replied without hesitation. It's not an explanation. It's my private matter after all. Tan Xiu said. Since you want to know, I have nothing to hide. Then tell me. Han Qingwu said. Have you heard of the magnificent Tang Corporation? Tan Xiu asked. I know. It's a newly established company in Star City a few months ago. Han Qingwu nodded and said, the company's business is booming recently. I'm the owner of the magnificent Tang Corporation, said Tan Xiu. What did you say? Han Qingwu was stunned and asked with an incredulous expression. I said I'm the owner of the magnificent Tang Corporation. The general manager of the magnificent Tang Corporation, Kong Xia, is actually working for me, Tan Xiu repeated. Seeing that Tan Xiu didn't seem to be joking, Han Qingwu's heart was filled with shock. Never once did she expect that Tan Xiu turned out to be the owner of the magnificent Tang Corporation. It must be noted that she had a deep understanding of Tan Xiu's family situation. But now, she realized that what she knew was not necessarily everything. What about the Everlasting Feast Hall? I'm also the owner of the Everlasting Feast Hall, said Tan Xiu. I can believe it if the magnificent Tang Corporation is yours. Han Qingwu shook her head and said, but I don't believe that you're the owner of the Everlasting Feast Hall. It's because the Everlasting Feast Hall has been established for decades. Even my grandfather recently investigated the Everlasting Feast Hall, yet he encountered a lot of resistance and setbacks. This shows that the Everlasting Feast Hall is very powerful. You're just a freshman who just entered Shanghai University. How could you possibly be the owner of the Everlasting Feast Hall? The affairs of the world are unpredictable. I can be the owner of the magnificent Tang Corporation, so why can't I be the owner of the Everlasting Feast Hall? Tan Xiu said. I believe you should have been to the Everlasting Feast Hall's branch in Shanghai after the previous incident, yes? Did you see Qinan? Yes, I did. Han Qingwu nodded and said, I also saw Qinan. Since you've confirmed her identity, why do you still doubt me? Asked Tan Xiu. Han Qingwu's sensual red lips squirmed a few times. She was rendered speechless by Tan Xiu's words. In fact, she had already believed that Tan Xiu was the owner of the Everlasting Feast Hall, yet it was very difficult for her to accept it. After all, even her grandfather was somewhat afraid of the Everlasting Feast Hall, yet the owner turned out to be Tan Xiu. It made her feel absurd. After being silent for a while, she said, no wonder my good sister came back from abroad and asked you to accompany her for a few days. Later on, she told me that you're very powerful and rich. I didn't believe it at first, but now I finally understand. But how did you become the owner of the Everlasting Feast Hall? It's a long story, and I don't think it's necessary to explain it to you, said Tan Xiu. We have a teacher-student relationship, so I'll listen to you in the campus. But Miss Han, you shouldn't pry into my private affairs. What's the matter with you, Tan Xiu? Han Qingwu angrily said. You weren't like this before. Tan Xiu fell into silence. That's right. He was indeed not like this. But ever since he knew that there was a 99% chance that Han Qingwu was Xue Qingqing's reincarnation, it made him change. He had lived for many years, but the person he hated the most was Xue Qingqing, who was also Han Qingwu in front of him. The deeper the love, the deeper the hatred. Since Han Qingwu didn't know about her past life, his hatred became a bit complicated. Should I kill her? Tan Xiu's heart was somewhat depressed. Should I forgive her? Tan Xiu admitted that he couldn't do it himself. Therefore, since he couldn't kill her or forgive her, he might as well choose to keep a distance. I'm really sorry. I was too busy last month, so I owe 5 chapters of monthly votes and chapters. I'll pay 2 chapters today, and the remaining 3 chapters will be paid slowly. This month is destined to be a month to pay off the debt. For the sake of Jinye's outburst, I'm weekly asking for a guaranteed monthly vote support. Chapter 430. Han Qingwu stared at the silent Tan Xiu. She felt a faint pressure in her chest that made it difficult for her to breathe, almost driving her crazy. She didn't understand. She couldn't figure out why Tan Xiu was getting colder and colder to her. You're right, Tan Xiu. I don't care if you have any other identity or not. In short, you're my student at this campus. Since you want to play the deep game, Then continue playing it. Now, tell me what you're going to perform tonight. I want a hand in the list of all the performers in our class before noon. Han Qingwu's expression turned a bit pale and a bit more indifferent. Tan Xiu had actually thought about the program he was going to perform last night. He just needed to get a musical instrument and perform it casually. But looking at Han Qingwu before him, he suddenly recalled the immortal song he had composed for her. It was an immortal ballad. Immortal dream. Zither playing and singing. Tan Xiu gave up his previous idea and lightly said, "Immortal dream?" Han Qingwu was stunned and a bit of confusion could be seen on her beautiful face. She had never heard of this song before. But she didn't know why, but she vaguely felt that the name was familiar. It was as if this song had a deep connection with her. It was a feeling that was hard to explain, but it was real. Han Qingwu glanced at Tan Xiu and nodded. "I'll write it down. I'll report it later." After that, she stepped on the heaven-hating mountain and turned to leave. Tan Xiu looked at her back as complex emotions rippled inside his heart. It was like the turbulence in the sea of bitterness, leaving him at a loss and palpitating. Tan Xiu subconsciously took out his lighter, lit a cigarette, and took a deep puff. Recently, he seemed to have fallen in love with the smell of cigarettes. Whenever he was in a good mood or depressed mood, he couldn't help but want to light a cigarette to calm his mood. "Big bro Tang, give me one." Hu Qingsong's figure appeared in the corridor. His eyes were smiling as he looked at Tan Xiu with ridicule. Tan Xiu didn't speak and directly stuffed the lighter and cigarette into Hu Qingsong's hand. Then he asked, "There's nothing to do today. What are you going to do later?" "What else can I do there?" Hu Qingsong laughed. He planned to go to the cafeteria to eat and then return to the dorm to sleep. "I didn't sleep enough last night, so I still have a headache." Tan Xiu said, "I won't go with you. I have something private to do. I'll come back to you in the evening." Hu Qingsong asked in surprise, "Where are you going?" Tan Xiu said, "To buy something." As the cigarette burned out, Tan Xiu extinguished it and walked down the stairs. Now that he had decided to play the zither in the evening, he needed to buy a good zither before the performance. However, after he sat in the car, Mu Weining called before he could start the car. "Where?" "I'm going out to do some shopping." "What's the matter?" "What are you going to buy?" "A zither. I'm at the campus gate. Pick me up and we'll go together." Tan Xiu hesitated for a moment before he agreed. When he drove to the campus gate, he saw Mu Weining in a beautiful dress with her long hair fluttering. At this time, Mu Weining was holding 2 textbooks in her hands and a coffee-colored women's bag on her shoulder. "Get in the car." Tan Xiu lowered the front seat window and said. Mu Weining didn't hesitate. Under the gazes of many handsome men and beautiful women around, she opened the door and sat inside. After closing the door, she asked with a smile on her face, "Where are you going?" Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "I'm just going to stroll around. I don't know where to buy zither specifically." Mu Weining chuckled and said, "I know you can play the zither. I believe your level should be as good as your calligraphy and painting. I'll definitely go to the campus auditorium in advance tonight." Tan Xiu smiled indifferently and chatted with Mu Weining while driving. What he didn't expect was that Mu Weining also knew how to play the zither and seemed to be good at it. He searched on the internet. Tan Xiu and Mu Weining found several shops that sold zither, but the quality of the zither inside was so terrible that Tan Xiu had no desire to buy them at all. At this moment, he couldn't help but miss the immortal zither he used in the immortal world. "Let's have lunch first. We'll continue searching after eating. Shanghai is so big and there should be a lot of places to buy zither. I'm sure we can find a very good zither." Mu Weining followed behind Tan Xiu. After coming out of a zither shop, she looked at the bustling street and said with a chuckle, "That's the only way." Tan Xiu nodded. "I hope we can buy a good zither this afternoon. Otherwise, we can only choose one at random and deal with it at night." The duo randomly found a restaurant and ordered some dishes. Mu Weining didn't talk much. Although Tan Xiu wasn't a person who treasured his words like gold, he didn't think that he and Mu Weining were familiar enough to talk about everything. So he occasionally found a topic to talk about. The two of them got along very well. Ring, 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 A melodious ringtone sounded. Tan Xiu took out his mobile and looked at the caller ID. After seeing that it was Chi Nan, he immediately pressed the answer button and asked, "What's up?" "Boss, the people from the headquarters caught an old couple. After the interrogation, they confessed that they learned about the situation of the Everlasting Feast Hall from you. They even asked to see you. Now, the people from the HQ have escorted them to Shanghai. What do you think we should do?" Tan Xiu frowned and asked, "Who are they?" "Loose cultivators," Chi Nan said. "The man's name is Wei Jiangping, and the woman's name is Chun Su." Tan Xiu frowned and asked, "Where are they?" "At the Everlasting Feast Hall." "I'll go there now," said Tan Xiu. Finished. He hung up the phone and looked at Mu Weining, who was eating slowly, and said, "I have something to deal with." "You?" Mu Weining gently raised her head and chuckled. "I'll go with you. I don't think you'll leave me here, right?" A wry smile appeared on Tan Xiu's face as he nodded and said, "Are you full? Shall we go now?" "I'm full." Mu Weining wiped the corner of her mouth with a napkin, picked up her handbag and got up. Half an hour later, Tan Xiu and Mu Weining arrived at the Everlasting Feast Hall. When Chi Nan saw Mu Weining beside Tan Xiu, her eyes were full of admiration. She found that her boss really had a lot of female friends, and each and every one of them was as beautiful as a fairy. "Where are they?" asked Tan Xiu directly. "They're being held in the training room," said Chi Nan respectfully. Tan Xiu wanted Mu Weining to stay and wait for him, but after seeing her calm expression, he hesitated and didn't say anything. Under Chi Nan's lead, they arrived at the training room. Tan Xiu saw Wei Jiangping tied to a chair and the distressed old lady. "Wei Jiangping, are you investigating the Everlasting Feast Hall?" asked Tan Xiu with an indifferent expression as he sat on the chair Chi Nan had brought over. A bit of bitterness could be seen on Wei Jiangping's old face as he looked at Tan Xiu with a bit of awe in his eyes. He nodded silently and bitterly said, "We, husband and wife, wanted to know the whereabouts of our son and daughter. We learned about the existence of the Everlasting Feast Hall from you, so we sent people to investigate, but all of them disappeared without a trace. We had no choice but to rush to Jingmen Island ourselves." "But we were found out?" asked Tan Xiu. "Then we were caught?" Wei Jiangping sighed. "Yeah. Our cultivation levels are extremely high, and we thought that only a few people in the world could be our opponents. But in the end, 10 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall easily captured us. We could even feel that if those people had directly killed us, we would have become ghosts under their blades." Tan Xiu snorted coldly. He took out his cell phone and dialed Gu Xiaoshua's number. After she picked up the call, he asked, "Did Light and Dark know about Wei Jiangping and Chuan Xiu?" "They know, Grandmaster." Gu Xiaoshua's voice came from the phone. "What's their decision?" asked Tan Xiu. "I won't see them." Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. After hanging up the phone, he looked at Wei Jiangping and Chuan Xiu and said, "I can spare your lives this time considering that you are Light and Dark's biological parents. You can be spared from the death penalty, but you can't escape punishment. This matter will end here if you promise me 2 conditions." "Please say it." Wei Jiangping quickly nodded. "First, stop investigating the Everlasting Feast Hall and stop looking for your children," said Tan Xiu. "They were in the Everlasting Feast Hall after you were captured, but they don't want to see you now, so I advise you not to waste your efforts." Wei Jiangping hurriedly said. However, as soon as he said that, his wife interrupted him. "Boss Tang, we can agree to your request, but considering how much we miss our children, can you tell us if we will be able to see them again before we die of old age?" "Yes, we can," said Tan Xiu. Chuan Xiu gratefully looked at Tan Xiu and said, "Please tell me the second condition." A smile appeared on Tan Xiu's face as he asked, "I need a zither of good quality. Do you have any way to get it?" "A zither? We can do it, but that zither is a personal belonging." Chuan Xiu nodded. "I don't know if my old friend's wife is willing to. If she doesn't want to sell it, I can lend it to her for one night," said Tan Xiu indifferently. "No problem. I'll see her immediately," said Chuan Xiu. Tan Xiu gestured to Chi Nan, who then untied the rope on them. She watched the couple stand up and said, "I don't have much time. I must get it before 5 p.m. Don't worry, Boss Tang. Chuan Xiu nodded. As the two left, Qinan curiously asked, "What do you want a zither for, boss?" "It's her doing. She signed me up for the freshman welcoming party held by the school tonight. I need to perform on the stage," said Tan Xiu with a forced smile. "You can play the zither, boss?" Qinan was surprised. "I must appreciate your zither skills tonight, boss." Tan Xiu secretly rolled his eyes and snappily said, "You don't need to be busy in the restaurant, do you? If not, go back to Jingmen Island and enter seclusion." Qinan covered her mouth and chuckled. Quiet Night has been in a particularly low mood recently due to her grandmother's death. "It's not easy for me to write 2 chapters normally. I'll pay my debt for the time being this month. I'll wait for the debt to be paid off before talking about breaking out. Quiet Night's writing speed is really unworthy of the support of my brothers and sisters." Chapter 431. After Tan Xiu left the Everlasting Feast Hall with Mu Weining, who had been silent all this time. As soon as they got into the car, Mu Weining smiled and said, "Tan Xiu, the more I get to know you, the more I find you unfathomable. I heard that the Everlasting Feast Hall is headquartered in Jingmen Island and has branches in Shanghai, the imperial capital, as well as Hong Kong. The business is very prosperous. It's just that I didn't expect you to be the owner of the Everlasting Feast Hall." "I'm just an ordinary person," said Tan Xiu. "If you were an ordinary person, I'm afraid there wouldn't be any powerful figures in this world." Mu Weining smiled. "The magnificent Tang Corporation and the Everlasting Feast Hall. I'm really curious, how many properties do you have?" "Just these 2, said Tan Xiu. "I don't believe it." Mu Weining shook her head and smiled. "That's why I must contact you more in the future and learn more about your secrets. You know what? You're the one I'm most interested in, no one else. Haven't you heard the saying that once a woman has an interest in a man, she won't be far from having her heart captured?" Tan Xiu snappily said. "If you're really that outstanding, it's not a bad thing to have your heart captured." Mu Weining chuckled. "Maybe the most important marriage in my life will be solved just like that. Material desires are rampant in this era." Tan Xiu shook his head. "The people's hearts are fickle and impetuous. It's said that femme fatale is the source of trouble. In this era, the more outstanding women surround you, the more troubles you will encounter. I don't like a chaotic life. I want to live a peaceful life and do my own things. Therefore, I don't dare to marry you, the first beauty in the imperial capital and the first campus belle of Shanghai University. If you want to get married, you'd better go and harm other men." "Tan Xiu, why do you say that I'm like a viper or a ferocious beast?" Mu Weining coquettishly rebuked. "You're better than a viper or a ferocious beast," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "Because you look more attractive than them." Mu Weining couldn't help but burst into laughter. After a while, she looked at the scenery outside the window and asked, "Since you asked that couple to help you find a zither, where are we going next?" "1 red heart, 2 cards in hand," said Tang Xiu. "We can't put all our hopes on them. If our old friend's wife doesn't want to lend them, we can't do it. Let's check online. Let's see if there are any shops selling zither nearby." "All right." Mu Weining took Mu Xiu Weining took out and started. Tan Xiu Tian. In the fruitful orchard, Wei Jiangping and Chun Xiu had just returned by taxi. At the entrance of the orchard, they saw Han Jintong and his wife, Yin Yue, waiting in front of a black Audi. "Brother, I trouble." Wei Jiangping strode to the front of the Han Jintong couple and said with a wry smile. "Brother Wei, we naturally won't stand idly by since you're in trouble." Han Jintong shook his head. "The Jade Wind Zither has been brought over. It's in the car." Wei Jiangping said gratefully, "Brother Han, I know that the Jade Wind Zither is Yue's favorite. Even if you don't want to sell it, it's fine. He said that he can only borrow it for 1 night." "Who is he?" Han Jintong asked in surprise. "Tan Xiu." Wei Jiangping sighed. Han Jintong frowned and asked, "What the hell is going on, Brother Wei? You and your wife went to Jingmen Island to inquire about the Everlasting Feast Hall and met Tan Xiu there?" Wei Jiangping shook his head bitterly. "We didn't meet Tan Xiu in Jingmen Island. Chun Xiu sighed faintly. After our investigation, we found that the Everlasting Feast Hall in Jingmen Island is really mysterious. But it's a pity that we were discovered by the Everlasting Feast Hall's people when we only found out a little bit of information. After repelling the 2 sentinels, we were surrounded by 10 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall. The average age of these 10 people was in their 30s or 40s. The 10 of them joined hands and easily captured us. He also sent someone to escort us to the Everlasting Feast Hall in Shanghai. What? Han Jintong and Yin Yue exchanged glances and looked aghast at the same time. They were aware of Wei Jiangping and Chun Xiu's strength. In the present era, those who could be their match were very few and far between. How come the Everlasting Feast Hall only sent 10 people to capture the couple? Wasn't this too inconceivable? What Chun Xiu said is true. Wei Jiangping forced a smile and said, "We were injured and captured by them with just 10 people. As a matter of fact, we could sense that their cultivation level was lower than ours. However, their moves were swift and fierce, and the moves they used were very exquisite and deadly. If it were really a fight to the death, I'm afraid they only needed 5 people to kill us in a very short time." Han Jintong shuddered inwardly and asked, "How many experts does the Everlasting Feast Hall have?" "I don't know." Wei Jiangping shook his head and said, "Just the number of people who surrounded us is more than 30. Some of them seem to be experts with unusual identities, yet they didn't even move." Han Jintong was silent for a long while and then faintly said, "We originally thought that after obtaining that cultivation technique and practicing it for decades, our strength would be extremely amazing, and there would be only a few people in this world who could be our opponents. But now we know that we're really sitting in a hole and looking at the sky. The ancient country of China is filled with hidden dragons and crouching tigers and talented people." Wei Jiangping sighed. "Since there is such an existence like the Everlasting Feast Hall in the country, I'm afraid there are also other powerful forces. Furthermore, I'm afraid it will be as difficult as ascending to the sky if we want to make another breakthrough. Our only hope now is to see our son and daughter who were taken away by her in our lifetime." A glint flashed in Han Jintong's eyes as he asked, "Brother Wei, if we express our goodwill to that Tan Xiu, can we?" Wei Jiangping shook his head and forced a smile. "Brother Han, I think it's best for you to give up this idea. Those people from the Everlasting Feast Hall are by no means good. Besides, I think it will be very difficult to make a breakthrough in our cultivation through the Everlasting Feast Hall, unless we pay an extremely heavy price." "I'm not willing to give it up if I don't try it," said Han Jintong. "I'll look for an opportunity to see Tan Xiu again in the future, hoping to get an opportunity to make a breakthrough." Wei Jiangping's expression suddenly moved as he said, "Brother Han, if I remember correctly, your granddaughter and Tan Xiu should have a special relationship." "Qingwu hasn't returned home since the last incident," said Han Jintong helplessly. "Even when I called her to ask about it, she just gave me a perfunctory reply. I only know that Qingwu was Tan Xiu's class teacher in high school. She now teaches at Shanghai University and is also Tan Xiu's class teacher. As for how they get along, I don't know." "All right." Wei Jiangping nodded and said, "Brother Han, I need to go out and deliver the Jade Wind Zither to him. I believe he won't deceive people given his identity." "Go," said Han Jintong. On a certain commercial street in Shanghai, Tan Xiu and Mu Weining went to several shops, yet they still couldn't find a good zither of good quality. With Tang Xiu's eyesight, although he had a few zither and was barely able to play them, the effect of playing the tune was likely to be much worse than expected. Just as the 2 of them were feeling somewhat helpless, Tan Xiu received a call from Qi Nan and learned that Wei Jiangping had sent a zither to the Everlasting Feast Hall. "I hope that Wei Jiangping has some ability and can help us find a good zither. Otherwise, I can only buy one at random and deal with it at night." Tan Xiu sighed. Mu Weining still looked calm and relaxed as she chuckled and said, "I believe that even if it's a very ordinary zither, you can still play the most wonderful notes." Tan Xiu smiled and drove the car back to the Everlasting Feast Hall. Inside the general manager's office, Qi Nan and Wei Jiangping stood in front of the sofa while the zither was placed on the tea table. However, the zither was wrapped in a silk cloth and its true appearance couldn't be seen. "Is this the zither you sent?" After stepping into the office, Tan Xiu's eyes fell on the tea table. With respect in his eyes, Wei Jiangping nodded and said, "I borrowed it from my old friend's wife. This zither is called the Jade Wind Zither, a work of painstaking effort by a zither master in the Qing dynasty. I don't know anything about zither, so I don't dare to evaluate this zither." Tang Xiu came to the tea table and gently lifted the satin cloth. What appeared in front of him was an exquisitely crafted zither with fine carvings. He could recognize the wood at a glance that it was made of gold-threaded nanmu. Ding! Tan Xiu's fingers slid on the zither's strings, producing pleasant notes. "This zither is barely good." Tan Xiu nodded. He then looked at Wei Jiangping and said, "You can go now. Come here tomorrow night to get the zither." Wei Jiangping hesitated for a moment and opened his mouth to speak. But after seeing Tan Xiu's indifferent expression, he swallowed back the words he wanted to say. He nodded silently and then turned to leave. Tan Xiu wrapped the Jade Wind zither in the silk cloth again. After picking it up, he said, "Qi Nan, if you come to Shanghai University tonight, wait for my performance and bring this zither back. Also, I need to tell you one thing. Help me find some good nannies for colorless." "Understood," said Qi Nan respectfully. "I'll contact them later." "All right." Tan Xiu nodded. After leaving the everlasting feast hall with Mu Weining, they didn't directly return to the campus but went to the Blue Star Villa complex instead. There were still 3 or 4 hours before the freshman welcoming party in the evening, so after discussing it, they decided to take a break first and have dinner before rushing to the campus. Inside the villa, Mu Weining picked up the phone and smilingly said, "Tan Xiu, the freshman welcoming party tonight should be very interesting." "What do you mean?" Tan Xiu raised his brows and asked. "A friend of mine just called me and said that a certain leader of the campus contacted Zhang Xinya, who is currently preparing for her concert in Shanghai, through a special relationship. I heard that the opening song of the freshman welcoming party tonight will be Zhang Xinya's performance," said Mu Weining with a smile. "Today's second chapter is presented to me. Please support me with a guaranteed monthly ticket." Chapter 432. Tang Xiu stared blankly for a moment upon hearing it. He had been hearing Zhang Xinya's name a lot in recent days. Even the billboards in many places in Shanghai were all her endorsements. Could it be that she was really that popular now? Mu Weining, the school invited a celebrity to the freshman welcoming party? Mu Weining chuckled and said, "There has never been such a precedent in the past. But it's a coincidence this time. Someone happened to know Zhang Xinya, so she was invited." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "The current celebrity effect seems to be helpful to the school. The school may take this opportunity to publicize it better." Mu Weining said with a smile, "Nowadays, all the famous schools are competing fiercely to recruit outstanding students. The school has just started, so the school may not need it. But it's hard to say next year. With a living signboard like Zhang Xinya, I'm sure it will attract a lot of outstanding students." Tan Xiu smiled and couldn't help but shake his head. Going to school? In today's era, being a student or not was no longer important. Even if they had a good diploma in the future, so what? They would still have to worry about finding a job and work for others. He once heard others say that many students would rather enter the society and learn a craft earlier than studying for 3 to 4 years in school. Of course, Tan Xiu didn't agree with this theory. The knowledge in school was the foundation, while learning a craft was practice. If smart students could combine the two and master the textbook knowledge, they would also find time to practice. This was the smartest choice. In the evening, Tan Xiu and Mu Weining ordered takeout and ate in the villa. After tidying up, they drove to the campus. Yu Kai and the others had been waiting for a long time. "Big Bro Tang, Great Beauty Mu, why are you?" A strange expression hung on Yu Kai's beautiful face, which carried a seductive charm. "I saw Mu Weining at noon," Tan Xiu explained casually. "She followed me out of the campus and helped me buy a zither outside." "Did you buy it?" Yu Kai asked curiously. "The quality of the zither sold in those shops is not good, so I borrowed one." Tan Xiu shook his head. Yu Kai laughed and said, "It's up to you tonight. Don't lose face for our dormitory. With a faint smile, Tan Xiu turned to look at Mu Weining and asked, "Are you going directly to the school auditorium with us?" Mu Weining said, "I'll go back to the dorm first. They should be waiting for me in the dormitory." Tan Xiu looked at Yu Kai and Hu Qingsong and said, "One of you drive her back. If we walk from here to the girls' dormitory, it will take quite a while." Damn. Damn. Yu Kai and Hu Qingsong shouted in unison. Mu Weining glanced at Tan Xiu and softly said, "I don't need you to send me off. I'll walk there myself." Finished. She turned to leave. As Mu Weining's figure disappeared at the corner of the distant path, Yu Kai glared at Hu Qingsong and shouted, "Mu Weining is mine. Don't fight with me over her." Hu Qingsong also widened his eyes and angrily shouted, "That's what I wanted to tell you. Mu Weining is mine. Don't fight with me over her." Tan Xiu looked at the two men staring at each other and immediately let out a wry smile. "Can't you two be good? It's just a trivial matter." Xue Chao nodded in agreement and muttered, "That's right. It's just a trivial matter. Besides, Mu Weining obviously likes eldest bro Tang. She won't even look at you even if you two fight until you break your scalps." "Shut up. You shut up." Yu Kai and Hu Qingsong immediately shouted at Xue Chao. Then, the two men exchanged glances with resentful expressions on their faces. They were not fools. How could they not see that Mu Weining was interested in Tan Xiu? But they were reluctant to part with such a great beauty. Hu Qingsong was silent for a while. Then, he suddenly turned to look at Tan Xiu and seriously said, "Eldest bro Tang, lend me your Audi A8 for 3 days." "What do you mean?" Tan Xiu stared blankly and asked with a confused expression. "I'll give the great beauty Mu to you," said Hu Qingsong. "Please don't give her to me." Tan Xiu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. "I don't have any interest in Mu Weining. Go ahead and chase her if you like her. Unless you disappear from Earth, do you think we have a chance?" Hu Qingsong angrily said. "Rather than wasting my time, it's better to be smart and extort some benefits from you. Cut the crap. I'll give you 3 big meals and lend me your Audi A8 for 3 days. I'll change my target later. Why do I feel like I'm a sucker?" Tan Xiu forced a wry smile. "Forget it. It's your business whether you want to chase her or not. I'll give you the car key at any time. Are you satisfied?" Hu Qingsong nodded with satisfaction. He reached out to hug Tan Xiu's shoulder and smilingly said, "Eldest bro Tang is really forthright. What about you, Yu Kai? You won't give up until you reach the Yellow River, will you? If you don't give up, then continue chasing her. I really want to see you hit your head and bleed, yet you end up with nothing." Scram. Yu Kai pointed his middle finger at him. He then looked at Tan Xiu and said, "Eldest bro Tang, I'll give you 6 big meals and lend me your Range Rover for 6 days." Tan Xiu rolled his eyes and threw the car key to Yu Kai, saying, "If any of you tell this to Zhao Liang, I'll nullify my promise to you." Yu Kai looked happy and grinningly took the car key. He blew a kiss to Tan Xiu and smilingly said, "Only a fool would tell such a good thing to Zhao Liang. That brat may be handsome, but there's still a big gap between him and me. He won't have a chance. But eldest bro Tang, are you really not going to pursue Mu Weining? She's the best-looking woman I've ever seen. She has the best figure and the best temperament." Tan Xiu rolled his eyes and smilingly scolded, "I'm really not interested. I think our top priority now is to study. Besides studying, we should think about the future. It would be best if we can spare some time to do some business." Yu Kai couldn't help laughing and said, "Eldest bro Tang, we came to the university to study. Do you really want to study hard? As for doing business, don't joke with me. Even if we have the capital, we don't have the direction." Eldest bro Tang is talking in his sleep. Hu Qingsong grinned. "How about we give him a punch to wake him up? It's simply a joke for a college student to do business." Tan Xiu was speechless. He felt that if he told them that he had been doing business since he was in high school, would their eyes pop out? "Let's go. Let's go to the university auditorium." In order to not attract attention, they didn't drive but strolled toward the university auditorium. When they came inside, They found that seats had been arranged according to each department and each class. The auditorium, which could accommodate nearly 10,000 people, was already half full at this time. Eldest bro Tang, you have to go backstage. The members of each class who will participate in the performance must go to the backstage to sign in. Additionally, the backstage is specially provided for the students to rest. You can come to the front after you finish your performance, said Hu Qingsong. Tang Xiu, who was holding the zither, nodded in response. After asking around, he quickly arrived at the corridor at the back of the auditorium. He saw many busy students and some well-behaved students from classes. He followed the names of the faculties and classes that were marked on the doors of each room and easily found where the students from his class who were participating in the performance were. Are you holding a zither, Tan Xiu? A delicate and pretty girl, who was putting on makeup, immediately turned her head and asked curiously when she saw Tan Xiu sitting next to her. Yeah, it's a zither, said Tan Xiu with a smile. You're going to perform a zither? Asked the girl. I'll play and sing, said Tan Xiu. The girl raised her thumb and praised, You're really amazing. There's even a boy who can play the zither nowadays. Furthermore, you're going to play and sing. Do you have a good singing voice? It's just so, said Tan Xiu with a light smile. The girl nodded and no longer talked to Tan Xiu, continuing to put on makeup. At this time, there were more than a dozen classmates in the room who were either putting on makeup or sharpening their skills to familiarize themselves with the upcoming performance. After sitting down, Tan Xiu took out his mobile phone and played with it. For him, he didn't need to practice the performance at all. He could directly play and sing. At this time, in another room only tens of meters away from the backstage rest area of the history department, several makeup artists were surrounding Zhang Xinya and putting on makeup for her. Behind her, a middle-aged woman with a forced smile on her face looked outside the door from time to time. The door was pushed open and a leader of Shanghai University came in with the same forced smile on his face. He quickly glanced at Zhang Xinya and then looked at the middle-aged woman and said, I can't find her. Shanghai University isn't a music academy after all, so there are too few teachers and students who know how to play the zither. Also, I've already sent someone outside the campus to look for her, but I don't know if it's too late. The middle-aged woman frowned and said, Vice President Li, we must find someone who can play the zither. We forgot the accompaniment music in our residence. Even if we go back now, I'm afraid it's too late. So, the middle-aged Vice President Li sighed helplessly. Just as he and the middle-aged woman were at their wits' end, a school teacher quickly came to the room with a program list and shouted, I found her. A student from our campus has signed up for a program that involves playing the zither and singing. How about we ask him to come and give it a try? Vice President Li looked happy and quickly took the program list. After seeing the content on it, he immediately said, Then hurry up and find him. We can only try it as a last resort in this situation. Zhang Xinya, who was having her makeup done, slightly frowned and said with a displeased expression, What are you talking about, Vice President Li? What do you mean by trying it as a last resort? Our singing style belongs to the ancient style. Although the student signed up for a program that involves playing the zither and singing, it's hard to say whether he can help us or not. Besides, there's only half an hour left before the freshman welcoming party of Shanghai University. I'm afraid the effect won't be very good even if we try to get used to it. Chapter 433. Vice President Li understood that what Zhang Xinya said made sense. After hesitating for a moment, he forced a smile and said, Xinya, there's nothing we can do about it. We only have two choices now. Either you change the song and we directly download the accompaniment music from the internet, or let that student named Tan Xiu accompany you. Then, Zhang Xinya said with an indifferent expression. But just as the words came out, her expression slightly stagnated. She quickly turned around and grabbed the program list. She quickly glanced through it and saw a familiar name. Tan Xiu? Could it be him? Zhang Xinya took a deep breath and seriously said, I need to see the student named Tan Xiu. I'll send someone to call him. Vice President Li nodded. In the history department's lounge. Tan Xiao was browsing the internet when he heard someone calling his name. He slowly turned his head and glanced at the other party. He got up and walked over, asking, "I'm Tan Xiao." "You are?" The woman looked happy and quickly said, "Hello, student Tan Xiao. I'm a teacher from the Academic Affairs Office of the university. You can call me Teacher Wang. Anyways, we need your help with something. Can you come with me?" "What is it?" Tan Xiao was confused. "You'll know the details after you come with me," said the woman. "Vice President Li of Shanghai University is waiting for you in another lounge." "All right." Tan Xiao nodded. He turned around and picked up his zither, following the female teacher to leave the classroom. Quickly. When Tan Xiao appeared at the door of Zhang Xinya's room, Zhang Xinya's eyes suddenly lit up. There was even a faint excitement in her eyes. Under the confused gazes of Vice President Li and her agent, she strode toward Tan Xiao and excitedly shouted, "I didn't expect to see you here, Tan Xiao." "That's great." Tan Xiao glanced at the situation in the room and then said with a smile, "I heard from my classmates that you'll be the mystery guest of our Shanghai University and will sing for the first time after the opening of the freshman welcoming party. I heard that you'll be holding a concert in Shanghai in a few days?" Zhang Xinya smiled and said, "Yeah. It just so happened that I knew Vice Principal Li before, so I was invited to your school." "That's great. Let's get together after the welcoming party. I'll treat you to supper." Tan Xiao smiled and said, "Forget it. The dormitory closes very early at night. It'll be troublesome if you come back late." Zhang Xinya said without hesitation, "It's okay. If the dormitory closes early, then we can go to the hotel and get a room." "Get a room?" At this moment, in the room, Associate Professor Li, the middle-aged woman's agent, the female teacher who had brought Tan Xiao here, and several makeup artists were all dumbfounded as they looked at Zhang Xinya in disbelief. Never in their wildest dreams did they expect that Zhang Xinya actually knew Tan Xiao. They didn't expect that Zhang Xinya would actually say that she wanted to go to the hotel with Tan Xiao to get a room. Who was Zhang Xinya? She was the most popular superstar nowadays. Not only was she popular in China, but she was also popular all over Asia. Her influence was also very big all over the world. "Xinya, watch your words." The agent quickly reminded her. Zhang Xinya looked at her and said with a smile, "It's all right, Sister Chen. Tan Xiao and I are very good friends. Moreover, he has helped me a lot." A forced smile appeared on the agent's face when she heard it. Immediately, Zhang Xinya looked at Tan Xiao and said with a smile, "Tan Xiao, I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you tonight. I need a zither to accompany the song I'm singing." Tan Xiao was puzzled and asked, "Do you need me to accompany the music? Don't you have?" Zhang Xinya said helplessly, "The music I recorded for that song is on a CD, but I forgot to bring it. Help me please. I'll treat you to supper tonight." Tan Xiao hesitated for a moment before he nodded and said, "All right, but I don't understand modern music scores. You should be able to play the zither accompaniment, right?" Zhang Xinya quickly nodded. "Then play it twice." "I need to listen to it," said Tan Xiao. "Then we'll try to cooperate. If there's no problem, I'll play the zither accompaniment for you when you sing on the stage." "No problem." Zhang Xinya's smile was particularly bright. She turned to look at Vice President Li and said, "Do you want to go out first?" Vice President Li hesitated for a moment. He was a bit worried. Although he didn't understand music, he didn't believe that Tan Xiao could learn it when Tan Xiao asked Zhang Xinya to play it twice. Moreover, Tan Xiao didn't even understand music scores, yet he signed up to play the zither and sing. This was simply a joke. "Xinya, we'll listen on the side. We won't disturb you." Zhang Xinya hesitated for a moment before she simply ignored them. She took the zither from Tan Xiao and put it on the table. Then, she said with a smile, "Tan Xiao, can you learn it after listening to me play it twice?" "I don't know. I'll try my best." Tan Xiao shook his head. Vice President Li pursed his lips, while the manager directly rolled his eyes. They couldn't understand why Zhang Xinya would agree to such an absurd proposal from Tan Xiao. The makeup artists, on the other hand, stood at the side with overflowing interest as they observed Tan Xiao smilingly. They had a good impression of the handsome Tan Xiao. Ding! The zither's melody was full of classical style, melodious and graceful, fluttering in the entire room. Tan Xiu's eyes were fixated on Zhang Xinya's fingers playing the zither, as well as the strings. His ears trembled from time to time as he quickly memorized the zither's melody. The song ended. Zhang Xinya turned her head and asked, "How was it?" Tan Xiu nodded and said, 7 or 8 points. "Play it again." "All right." There was a bit of worship in Zhang Xinya's eyes. She complied and played it again. Then she got up and asked with a smile, "How about now?" Tan Xiu closed his eyes and silently recalled for half a minute. He then nodded and said, "It's about right." After saying that, he sat down at the place where Zhang Xinya had just sat. He closed his eyes again and put his fingers on the zither's strings. After a few seconds, his fingers began to slide. The beautiful zither's melody was melodious and full of spirituality. He handled the transition between the notes very well, like floating clouds and flowing water, and quickly played the dubbing. Amazing! Too amazing! Zhang Xinya's eyes were sparkling, and the worship in her eyes was even more intense. She had seen many talented musicians, but she had never seen one as amazing as Tan Xiu. He was able to play it just by listening to it twice. Moreover, his playing was very beautiful. Although, there were a few flaws in the entire song played by Tan Xiu. But to be able to do it to this extent was simply a god. At the side, the vice president Li only felt that Tan Xiu's playing was very good, and his level was almost the same as Zhang Xinya's. But the agent was different. She also knew music, and she used to be a music teacher. Naturally, she could tell how good Tan Xiu was at Tan Xiu's playing. At this time, if she didn't know that Tan Xiu had never heard this song before, she would almost suspect that Tan Xiu had secretly learned it. It must be noted that this song was written by a very famous musician for several months for Zhang Xinya. Musical genius? Evildoer? The agent didn't know how to describe her current mood at the moment. Tan Xiu faintly smiled and said, "I think there are still a few places that weren't handled very well. How about you play it again? I'll pay attention to the way you handle it." Zhang Xinya smiled and said, "No problem." After saying that, she began to play again. Tang Xiu, on the other hand, directly released his spiritual sense to listen and watch with rapt attention. He constantly memorized the problems in playing this piece of music, as well as the way Zhang Xinya dealt with several turning points. Finally, when Zhang Xinya finished playing, Tan Xiu said with a smile, "It's almost done. I'll play and you sing. Let's rehearse." "Okay." Zhang Xinya made a gesture and gave her seat to Tan Xiu again. She listened to Tan Xiu playing the zither and began to sing softly. The zither's sound was beautiful, and the singing was moving. Although it was the first time for the two of them to work together, it was as if they had been working together for many years. It was simply flawless. At the end of the last note, the manager clapped his hands vigorously. Her eyes were full of shock and a bit of excitement. She quickly said, "Classmate Tang, can we discuss something?" "What is it?" Tan Xiu asked. The agent quickly said, "Sign a contract with me and be a singer under my company. I guarantee that the contract I'll give you won't be much worse than Xinya's." Zhang Xinya couldn't help but burst into laughter upon hearing it. Tan Xiu was at a loss whether to cry or laugh. "I'm sorry, I don't have much interest in music. Besides, our university's vice principal Li is here. Aren't you afraid that he'll be angry if you poach him so openly?" Vice Principal Li was confused. What's going on? Could it be that Tan Xiu is good at playing? The agent sighed. "Vice Principal Li, classmate Tang's playing is more than good. He's simply amazing to the extreme. The mood and tune of the zither song are exactly the same as the original one. I even feel that it's a bit more spiritual than the original one. I dare say that he is definitely a musical genius, one that surpasses the ancients and surpasses the contemporaries. There is no one better than him." Tan Xiu was a bit embarrassed by the praise. He raised his hand to touch the bridge of his nose and forced a wry smile inwardly. Vice Principal Li was surprised. "Is he really that amazing?" The agent said, "Would I poach him in front of you if he wasn't that amazing?" "Vice Principal Li, let's make a deal. As long as you expel Tan Xiu, I'll give you anything you want. Vice Principal Li was shocked. He looked at Tan Xiu and then at the agent. Then he forced a smile and said, Tan Xiu is a student of Shanghai University. I won't expel him without permission. Besides, even you care about him so much. I can't bear to part with such an outstanding student. Boring. The agent gave Vice Principal Li a supercilious look. Chapter 434. Big Sis Chin, don't have any ideas about Tan Xiu. Zhang Xinya smiled tenderly. No matter how good your promise is, he won't agree to it. All right, we've found the right person and it's almost time for the freshman welcoming party. You can go busy yourselves first. We'll go on the stage and perform when the host calls us. All right. Vice Principal Li smiled after hearing it. Afterward, the makeup artist continued to do Zhang Xinya's makeup, while Tan Xiu stroked the zither strings and recalled the scene of him playing the zither in the immortal world. The scenes of the past were filled with sweetness and heartbreak. You know, Tan Xiu, I didn't have many idols since I was young because I'm very smart and there are only a few people who are smarter than me. But you've become my idol. I dare say that you'll definitely become a big star in a very short time if you enter the entertainment circle. Zhang Xinya sat there and said with a smile while receiving her makeup. Tan Xiu came back to his senses and lightly smiled. I'm not interested in being a star. I'm a student now, and my studies are more important. I know you don't care about being a star. Zhang Xinya smiled. It's just that I'm a bit regretful after what just happened. Let's have a deal. You'll be mine after the freshman welcoming party tonight. If your dormitory closes, we'll go to open a hotel. Zhang Xinya, can you stop saying we'll open a hotel all the time? Tan Xiu helplessly said. People will misunderstand. I don't care about it, but you're a girl and a big star. You need to be careful. What are you afraid of? Zhang Xinya smiled. I might care a lot if it's a scandal with someone else. But I don't care if it's a scandal with you. If worst comes to worst, I'll announce that you're my boyfriend so that others won't have crooked thoughts about me in the future. Don't. Tan Xiu forced a smile and said, please do a good deed and let me go. You're a big star now, a goddess in many men's minds. If you announce that I'm your boyfriend, I'm afraid I'll get cockroaches when I eat, get hit on the head when I walk, and have people pour cold water on me even when I'm sleeping. Hee. Zhang Xinya couldn't help but smile brightly. As time passed by, the freshman welcoming party of Shanghai University finally began. Following the speech of the university leaders, the host stood under the spotlight and looked at the dense crowd of teachers and students below. He said with a smile, tonight, the leaders of Shanghai University have invited a mysterious guest to add a festive atmosphere to our freshman welcoming party. Do you want to know who this mysterious guest is? The thousands of new students below, as well as many of the older students, all revealed confused expressions. Other than a few people, the others shook their heads, indicating that they were not sure. The host said with a smile, since everyone can't guess it, then let me announce it. I believe that once I say her name, you will be very excited, very happy. Even the current me was already very happy, and I couldn't wait to see her performance. Next, let's welcome our international superstar, Miss Zhang Xinya, to perform a classical song, Desert Oasis. Zhang Xinya, dressed in an evening gown, walked in from the backstage side door. As the spotlight shone on her, she stood on the stage with a smile. My God, I'm not dreaming, am I? Is it really Zhang Xinya? God, I'm so excited. Zhang Xinya actually came to our university? She's even going to be the first singer of this year's freshman welcoming party. Can someone pinch me? I want to know if I'm dreaming or not. Goddess, I've finally seen the goddess of my dreams. Zhang Xinya, I love you. All the students in the school auditorium were boiling with excitement. Everyone stood up from their seats and waved their arms with all their might. They shouted and shouted, vividly expressing their excitement. Zhang Xinya held the microphone and stood under the spotlight. She smiled and said, "Thank you everyone. I'm very honored to be invited by the leaders of Shanghai University to participate in this year's freshman welcoming party. Looking at your youthful faces, looking at your adorable appearance, to tell the truth, I am very happy to see you all. Shanghai University is one of the key universities in the country. The students who can get into this university are all elites among the students and will be the pillars of society in the future. Today, I've brought a new song to everyone. I hope everyone will like it. After that, as the audience gradually quietened down, all the students also sat down. The melodious sound of the zither rang out. In the whistling north wind, the notes created a desolate atmosphere. In an instant, all the teachers and students in the university auditorium felt as if they were looking at an endless desert, with yellow sand flying all over the sky. There was a place that appeared in my dream. It was a paradise in the vast desert. Accompanied by the sound of the zither, Zhang Xinya held the microphone and sang affectionately. Her voice was very beautiful. With the accompaniment of the fascinating zither, it was as if everyone was pulled into the endless desert. Gradually, with the continuous ups and downs of her singing, everyone's eyes suddenly lit up. They saw an oasis in the desert full of yellow sand. 4 or 5 minutes passed. When Zhang Xinya's singing ended and the last note of the zither dissipated in the air, everyone in the auditorium stood up one after another. They waved their arms excitedly and shouted, "One more song." Zhang Xinya was not in a hurry to get off the stage. Instead, she stood under the spotlight and said with a smile, "Actually, I also want to play one more song, but today is your festival after all. There are still many people waiting to perform, so I won't waste everyone's time. If you like me, please wait for my concert in Shanghai New World Center in 4 days. I look forward to everyone's coming." After that, she left in the midst of everyone's cheers. Behind her, Tan Xiu had already put away the zither. Looking at Zhang Xinya who was walking over, he smiled and gave her a thumbs up. He praised, "You sang very well." Zhang Xinya had a bright smile on her face. Originally, she thought that there was no excitement in coming to Shanghai University to perform. If it wasn't for her friend's invitation, she wouldn't even want to come. However, the situation was different now. She saw Tan Xiu, the person she really wanted to see. "You played very well too," Zhang Xinya said with a smile. Tan Xiu smiled indifferently. He picked up the zither and said, "I'll go back first. I still have a performance later, so I need to prepare for it." Zhang Xinya's eyes lit up and she hurriedly said, "I've already finished my performance. How about I go with you?" Tan Xiu shook his head and said with a smile, "No. If you go with me, you'll make my classmates quarrel with me for a long time. You should go and rest first. Or you can go to the front to watch the show." Zhang Xinya was a bit disappointed, but she still nodded and said, "Then I'll go to the front to watch the show. I'm looking forward to your performance." Tan Xiu nodded with a smile. When he returned to the history department's lounge, he saw Han Qingwu frowning, not knowing what she was thinking. "Where have you been, Tan Xiu?" Han Qingwu immediately asked when she saw Tan Xiu come in. Tan Xiu said, "The university's leader just looked for me and asked me to help. I just finished my work, so I came back." Han Qingwu already knew that Tan Xiu was called away by the university's leader, so she nodded and curiously asked after hearing Tan Xiu's words, "What kind of help did they ask you to do?" Tan Xiu said, "To accompany someone else." "Accompaniment?" Han Qingwu stared blankly for a moment. When she saw the zither Tan Xiu was holding, a thought flashed in her mind and she exclaimed, "Zhang Xinya's accompaniment just now was you." Tan Xiu hurriedly cleaned up and then said in a low voice, "Don't shout. Do you want everyone to pay attention to me?" Han Qingwu knew Tan Xiu's low-key character and immediately praised in a low voice, "You're really amazing. I thought that the zither accompaniment just now was a recorded zither song. I didn't expect that it was actually played by you. How about it? Is Zhang Xinya beautiful?" Tan Xiu was silent for a moment and said, "She's a bit prettier than you." "You?" Han Qingwu was furious, but the occasion was not right. Although she was so angry that she wanted to bite Tan Xiu, she could only endure it on this occasion. However, she still moved closer to Tan Xiu and twisted his waist. Then she turned around and said, "Your program is ranked 17th. Listen carefully and wait at the backstage door when you're called." Tan Xiu didn't feel any pain, but when he saw Han Qingwu's venting expression before she turned around, he secretly smiled bitterly in his heart. He didn't want to provoke Han Qingwu, but she always appeared in front of him. Inside the auditorium, in the corner of the last row, Qi Nen crossed her arms and leaned against the aisle with a faint smile hanging on the corner of her mouth. As the saying goes, the pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. She was in Shanghai and often followed Tan Xiu around, so she knew a lot of things about Tan Xiu. Just like now. If those people from the Everlasting Feast Hall knew that Tan Xiu would perform in the auditorium of Shanghai University tonight, it was likely that all of them would want to come and watch it. But in the end, she was the only one who could enjoy her boss's performance. She was looking forward to it. Looking forward to her boss's wonderful performance. In the rows of seats, Mu Weining was sitting in one of the rows of seats with a smile on her face. She listened to her 3 dormitory sisters whispering to each other while looking forward to Tan Xiu's performance inwardly. Suddenly, Jiang Fian turned her head to look at Mu Weining and said, "Big sis Weining, I remember that Tan Xiu will also participate in tonight's performance, right? When will he appear?" Li Xinjie and Hu Wei exchanged glances before they also shifted their eyes to Mu Weining. "How would I know?" Mu Weining said with a smile. "I'm looking forward to Tan Xiu's performance. I believe he will make a lot of people look at him in a new light." Jiang Fian said. "Fian, you think too highly of Tan Xiu, don't you?" Li Xinjie said with a charming smile. "I heard that he's going to perform on the zither. Do you think it'll be good for a man to play the zither and sing at the same time?" Hu Wei also said, "Let's just look around. After all, Tang Xiu is a boy. There are very few boys who can play the zither nowadays, and those who can play it well are even fewer. So let's not have too much hope. It's a pity that Xue Chao has no talent show." Chapter 435. Li Xinjie looked at Hu Wei with a strange expression and said, "Wei Wei, don't tell me you really like Xue Chao?" A smile outlined on the corner of Hu Wei's mouth as she said, "So what if I like him? Don't look down on him. Children living in the mountains are the most simple. I don't need him to be handsome or rich when I look for a boyfriend. I'm willing as long as he's a good person." Li Xinjie nodded thoughtfully and said, "You're right, Wei Wei. It's superficial to use money to measure a person and evaluate a person based on their appearance. Xue Chao is simple and honest. I think he's really good." Mu Weining stared blankly. She turned to Hu Wei and shook her head, saying, "Wei Wei, you and Xue Chao are not suitable for each other." Hu Wei frowned and said, "Sis Weining, why do you think we're not suitable for each other?" "I think we're quite suitable." Mu Weining sighed. "If you knew Xue Chao many years ago and took the initiative to pursue him, maybe you two would be suitable for each other. But now you're really not suitable for each other. Give me a reason." Hu Wei said with a displeased expression. "I went out with Tan Xiu this afternoon and talked about some topics, one of which was Xue Chao," said Mu Weining. "Xue Chao is married. Not only does he have a wife, but he also has a child. Don't tell me you want to be a third party in someone else's marriage?" "What did you say?" Hu Wei suddenly stood up with an incredulous look on her face. "Xue Chao has a wife and a child. Do you want me to repeat it again?" As a matter of fact, Xue Chao fell in love with his wife when they were in high school, but they didn't get a marriage certificate. Now, not only did they get a marriage certificate, but they also have a child. A few days ago, Xue Chao was injured by a gangster because he was a good Samaritan. Tan Xiu went to the hospital to see him and brought the family of 3 to Tan Xiu's villa to live for some time. "So, Wei Wei, you should give up." Hu Wei was stunned for a long while before a disappointed look appeared on her face. She was indeed moved by Xue Chao. Although she didn't have many feelings for him, Xue Chao's words and actions, as well as his innocent heart, really attracted her. In the other area, Yu Kai crossed his legs and looked at the students performing on the stage. He shook his head and said, "Their performance level is just so. They can barely make it in our school's freshman welcoming party. But if it's on the big stage, they won't be able to do it. I don't know how good eldest brother Tang's performance is, but it would be very disappointing if it's only at this level." Zhao Liang, who came later, rolled his eyes and said, "I don't like what you just said, Yu Kai. If eldest bro Tang can show this level, he's already qualified. Big bro Tang can of the zither, can you? Yu Kai said resentfully, that's because I didn't learn it. Kai muttered. Wei can learn it if you, big of. If you want to pick up girls, you can continue learning. But I don't believe you can learn to play the piano. An angry expression appeared on Yu Kai's face as he waved his fist at Xue Chao. Then he lowered his head in silence. Hu Qingsong said with a smile, we're just here to join in the fun. Big bro Tang didn't sign up by himself. He was tricked by Beauty Mu, so don't expect him to perform well. I think that if he can play a complete song smoothly, it would be enough for him to sing a few lines. Tens of meters away, several girls were gathered together and discussing the topic of Zhang Xinya's first song. Yi Lianyan, however, didn't join them. She folded her arms and quietly watched the performance of the students on the stage. It was a summer vacation. She quickly transformed and grew up. Although she came to Shanghai University to study, she had been thinking about the issue. Tan Xiu once told her that he hoped she could go to Nine Dragons Island to work in the future. Yi Lianyan knew that Tang Xiu was a great man, but she was somewhat regretful now. She regretted not asking clearly about Tang Xiu's business and which city he would often live in. Moreover, what made her feel helpless was that she accidentally lost her mobile phone, and Tang Xiu's cell number was also lost. Therefore, she planned to go to Jingmen Island again during the National Day holiday to find Mo Iwan and ask for Tan Xiu's number. What are you thinking about, third sister? A girl at the side touched Yi Lianyan's arm and asked with a smile. Yi Lianyan realized that she was distracted again. She immediately shook her head and smiled. Nothing. The performance on the stage is just so I don't want to watch it anymore. How about we go back to the dormitory? Or we can go to the campus library. The girl said, don't. It'll be a big loss if Zhang Xinya comes out to sing again. Let's wait for a while. You've been studying hard every day. Even when you go to the military training, you still have time to read the textbooks. I think you're turning into a nerd. It's good to read more books and learn skills so that you can have a better job in the future, said Yi Lianyan with a smile. The girl giggled. What job? Third sister, you're quite good-looking. When the time comes, you can hook a rich husband and you won't have to worry about food and drink for the rest of your life. Yi Lianyan rolled her eyes at her and said, rather than relying on heaven, earth, parents, and men, it's better to rely on myself. I'm a person with a goal. What goal? Several girls gathered their heads. Yi Lianyan clenched her fists and confidently said, the wealth I have in the future must be 1/10 of his. Who is he? The three girls asked at the same time. You won't know even if I tell you, Yi Lianyan said with a smile. Bah. 3 middle fingers were raised and they no longer discussed this topic. The performances in the auditorium ended one by one. Soon, it was Tan Xiu's turn. The host announced, next, Tan Xiu, a freshman from the history department of our university, will be giving us the performance of Immortal Dream on the zither. Let's welcome Tan Xiu. In the auditorium, Qi Nan's eyes lit up. Mu Weiniang and the other girls stopped moving, while Yu Kai and the others stared with wide eyes. Yi Lianyan was stunned for a moment before she shook her head, thinking that it was just someone with the same name. However, when a familiar figure walked onto the stage and came before the zither that had been placed, Yi Lianyan abruptly stood up and looked incredulously at Tan Xiu, who was sitting in front of the zither. To prove that her eyes were not playing tricks on her, she raised her arm and rubbed her eyes hard. It's really him? He's also a freshman from Shanghai University? After confirming that she was not dreaming, Yi Lianyan was so excited that her body trembled. If it weren't for Tan Xiu's upcoming performance, she would have rushed to Tan Xiu and asked him why he didn't tell her that he was also a freshman from Shanghai University. At the side of the performance stage, Han Qingwu crossed her arms and quietly looked at Tan Xiu's side profile. In a dark corner a dozen meters away from her, Zhang Xinya, who was wearing a mask and a cap, stared unblinkingly at Tan Xiu with her bright eyes. In front of the zither, Tan Xiu sat in a chair. As the lights gradually dimmed, only a spotlight shone on him. His eyes slowly swept across the teachers and students below the stage. He slowly closed his eyes under everyone's gaze. A few seconds later, his eyes suddenly opened, and his fingers slid across the zither strings like flowing water. The sound of flowing water and the laughter of white birds flowed along with the sound of the zither. A heart-trembling zither sound pulled everyone into a wondrous world in just a dozen or so seconds. There were green mountains and clear waters, waterfalls and colorful butterflies. It was like a fairyland in a dream. On a mountain peak surrounded by clouds and mist, someone sat cross-legged and played the zither. In the beautiful and soul-trembling zither sound, white birds danced and chirped cheerfully. Boom! Standing on the side of the performance stage, Han Qinggu, with her arms crossed, suddenly trembled. Her pupils contracted instantly, and her body tensed up in an instant. Familiar. She heard a familiar melody from the sound of the zither. She was sure that she had never heard this kind of zither sound before, but for some reason she did feel an inexplicable familiarity. Under the pull of the sound of the zither, Han Qinggu felt that the world in front of her disappeared. When her vision became clear again, she was already standing on the top of the mountain. She saw herself, a woman who was almost identical to herself, standing next to the person playing the zither and dancing. The white dress fluttered, the fairy-like figure danced, like a fairy from the ninth heaven, dancing to the sound of the zither. Time flies, immortals and mortals are like a dream. The strange tone allowed everyone to understand the meaning of the song. Han Qinggu looked at the dancing fairy from a strange perspective and stared at the back of the person playing the zither. Before the singing started, her mouth had already started chanting a step ahead of it. It was as if she already knew the lyrics, knew the magical notes. At the same time, it was as if a bolt of lightning flashed in her mind. In that moment of sudden brightness, fragments flew out from the gap of the light like dancing butterflies. It was as if the memories of the past had merged with the fairy-like world in front of her. In the vast immortal sea, I fall in love. The beauty of a city, dancing in my dream of immortality. The tender song echoed. From the sound of the zither, everyone could hear the love of the person playing the zither, the deep love he had for the dancing woman. It seemed to freeze at this moment. The warmth of love seemed to nourish everyone. Gradually, everyone was immersed in it. Tan Xiao, who was playing the zither and singing, recalled the scenes of the past, and his fingers played more and more fluently. As the scenes of the past kept floating in his mind, when the song was about to end, the scenes in his mind suddenly changed. Tribulation. Ambushed. A familiar friend. A beloved woman. The anger of being betrayed suddenly exploded in his chest. As the sound of the zither changed, the world in front of everyone changed rapidly as well. Monstrous evil, a hell of blood and mountains of corpses. In an instant, everyone screamed, regardless of whether they were in that hellish world or in the auditorium in reality. I'll update 2 chapters today. Please guarantee the monthly votes. There should be one more chapter tonight. If the monthly votes exceed 100 by 8 p.m. tonight, Quiet Night will try to release 3 more chapters tonight, paying off all the chapters from last month in one go. Chapter 436. The sudden change from heaven to hell caused everyone's expression to change as they cried out involuntarily. The world in front of everyone's eyes also changed from a fairyland of birds and flowers to a ferocious azure hell. Terrifying. Trembling. On the side of the stage, Han Qingwu's body swayed and she suddenly fell to the ground. Although the scene in front of her had turned into a horrifying hellish scene, it was not this that made her afraid, but the memory fragments that burst out in her mind. The mountain peak where the cold wind blew. The glacier that was covered in white snow. Familiar yet strange faces, figures that possessed the power to destroy the heavens and earth. She couldn't tell which was real and which was just an illusion. She didn't know why these fragmented images would appear in her mind. In the boundless sky, bolts of terrifying lightning struck down, accompanied by thunderous explosions that shook people's hearts. The speed of the wind, the violence of the rain, the roar of the thunder, and the devastation of the lightning. The horrifying images formed an apocalyptic world. She saw it. She saw that in this apocalyptic world, a stalwart figure stood in the air, sweeping through the sky full of sword shadows, destroying the siege of wind, rain, thunder, and lightning, sweeping away the waves of the apocalypse. No, Han Qingwu saw the men who possessed the power to destroy heaven and earth. At this moment, she did not know why she was in so much pain that she wanted to die immediately, but she still launched an attack against the stalwart figure. Clang! The last thunderous note of the zither exploded in Han Qingwu's ears. She was drowned in the waves of pain, the memory fragments in her mind turned into specks of starlight and dissipated, and the hellish world in front of her also became fragmented. As her consciousness went black, she instantly fainted. In the auditorium, everyone closed their eyes, their faces were filled with deep sorrow, and tears were flowing down their cheeks. Their frowns slowly relaxed, but after the zither completely dissipated, the entire scene was dead silent. At this moment, even if a needle fell to the ground, it would be heard clearly. Behind Feng Yao's zither, Tang Xiu slowly raised his head. When he subconsciously raised his hand and touched his face, he found that 2 lines of tears had unexpectedly flowed down his cheeks without him noticing. His gaze slowly swept across the audience. When he released his divine sense, he saw many familiar faces. Tan Xiu suddenly frowned. He reached out to grab the wind jade zither and walked towards Han Qingwu at the side of the stage. Without anyone noticing, Tan Xiu's fingers pressed on a few acupuncture points on Han Qingwu's body before quickly disappearing from the backstage side door. What happened to me? In the aisle behind the auditorium, Qi Nan was the first to wake up. The moment she opened her eyes, she didn't have time to wipe the tears off her face. She raised her head to look at the stage and was slightly startled to find that the boss was long gone. What was that power just now? Qi Nan's heart was trembling, and her eyes were shining with awe. She was sure that her boss's music was definitely strange. She'd experienced countless battles, and she'd even imagined that if she were to hear this zither music during a battle, then she would be like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, and she wouldn't be able to fight back at all. In the past, although she was in awe of Tan Xiu, it was because of Tan Xiu's identity. But now, she was in awe of Tan Xiu because of Tan Xiu's terrifying means. At the same time, on the other side of the stage, Zhang Xinya had already woken up. She quickly scanned the stage, but she didn't see Tan Xiu's figure. At this moment, she could still hear her own heartbeat, and she felt a faint chill in her body. She had seen the horror of Tan Xiu. When she was in Hong Kong, Tan Xiu's cruel killing methods were deeply imprinted in her mind. Tonight, she had experienced the beauty of the fairyland and then the horror of hell. There was even a deep sadness in her heart that couldn't be dispersed for a long time. Before, she had never thought that playing the zither could reach such a level. The world outlined by the zither music was so real that it made people feel as if they were in the realm. In the auditorium, Yu Kai, Hu Qingsong, and the others slowly woke up. After they found that Tan Xiu had disappeared from the stage, they raised their arms and wiped the tears from the corners of their eyes. Why do you feel so sad? Hu Qingsong muttered with a thick northeastern accent. It's very depressing. I feel so sad. Xue Chao nodded. Yukai's eyes looked around and found that the people around were the same as him. Almost everyone was wiping their tears, and the sadness on their faces hadn't subsided. He raised his hand to press his chest and murmured, playing the zither to this level, eldest bro Tang can be considered as unprecedented in history, right? I never believed that music could shock people's souls, nor did I believe that music could make people hallucinate. But now I believe it. Hu Qingsong, Xue Chao, and the others turned their heads and looked at Yukai's expression. Hu Qingsong then said, Me too. Eldest bro Tang played the zither so well. He made me feel the fairyland and hell. Eldest bro Tang will be my idol from now on. Xue Chao nodded repeatedly and slowly raised his thumb. In another direction, Jiang Fian wiped the tears on her face and grabbed Li Xinjia's arm. With a bit of sobbing tone, she said, Xinjia, why do I feel a bit distressed? Li Xinjia looked at her with a complicated expression and said with a bit of sadness, We were all affected by the zither sound. I just observed that almost everyone was the same as us. Tan Xiu's zither skill is really amazing. He's simply a god in zither music. God? Mu Weining, who was sitting quietly at the side, suddenly felt that Li Xinjia's description was very appropriate. That's right. Tan Xiu was indeed a god in playing the zither. And he was also a god in painting and calligraphy. How can there be such a powerful man in this world? Just like a god? Can I fall in love with any other man after meeting him in this life? A bit of bitterness suddenly appeared on the corner of Mu Weining's mouth. An inexplicable feeling was born in the deepest part of her heart. In another place, Yi Lianyan's eyes were hazy with tears. After experiencing the taste of heaven and hell, she suddenly found that she knew too little about Tan Xiu. The zither sound and the lyrics. She didn't know how to describe it. The idea of rushing out to find Tan Xiu was particularly strong at this time. On the stage, the host wiped away the tears on her face and quickly adjusted her mood. She took the microphone and came to the stage. She looked at the sad expressions of the school leaders as well as the students below. After a few seconds of silence, she slowly asked, "Everyone, what do you think about student Tang Xiu's zither playing and singing?" More than 10 seconds passed. For more than 10 seconds, no one responded. Everyone was adjusting their emotions as they recalled the scenes they had just experienced. Finally, a leader of Shanghai University stood up from his chair and said in a deep voice, "Good, very good. I've heard countless zither playing and singing, but none of them can be compared with the level of Tan Xiu." Applause sounded. Then, there was continuous applause. Just 10 seconds later, the applause in the auditorium was extremely loud. Everyone was applauding. Everyone was amazed. Applause. It woke up Han Qingwu, who was in a coma. "What happened to me?" Han Qingwu opened her eyes and found herself in a dark place. The whole auditorium was echoing with thunderous applause. She supported herself with her arms and sat up with difficulty. Suddenly, a deep sorrow welled up in her heart. At the same time, her body stiffened and memory fragments kept flashing in her mind. Like the memory fragments when she was listening to the zither sound, she saw a lot of scenes. She saw a lot of people whose faces were not very clear, and she also saw herself. However, these memory fragments were not connected. It was as if he was looking at a picture. Those pictures were very familiar, but also very strange. "What are these?" Han Qingwu felt a splitting headache and couldn't help covering her head with her hands. She desperately wanted to see more memory fragments. However, when the series of pictures disappeared, she had a headache and couldn't remember what was going on with those pictures. Immediately, she slowly stood up and walked backstage with a pale face. She didn't realize that she was drenched in sweat at the moment, and her legs were slightly trembling as she walked. In the boys' dormitory, Tan Xiu leaned on his Land Rover and looked at Qi Nan, who rushed over after receiving his call. He handed the wind jade zither to her and said, "Take it back. Give it back to Wei Jiangping tomorrow." Qi Nan received it with a complicated expression. Looking at Tan Xiu's indifferent expression, she hesitated and said, "Boss, your playing is really great. But I'm a bit confused." "Say it." Tan Xiu said. "Your zither sound and singing were full of happiness and joy," Qi Nan said. "But why did the artistic conception change so much later? The artistic conception of the immortal dream should be beautiful, right?" Tan Xiu said lightly, "My heart touched something and I played it wrong." Qi Nan suddenly understood, but fear grew inside her heart. She didn't understand what happened to Tan Xiu, but she was sure that it was definitely an extremely tragic and sorrowful story. "Then I'll go back first, boss." "Let's go." Tang Xiu waved his hand as he took out a cigarette and lit it. He watched Qi Nan disappear into the night in the distance. Suddenly, he let out a self-deprecating smile. He thought that he could suppress his emotions, but he didn't expect that he would fail. Fortunately, the artistic conception of the zither sound didn't contain any offensive means. Otherwise, everyone in the auditorium tonight would have turned into idiots. He shook his head. Tan Xiu wanted to drive away and go to the Blue Star Villa complex to wait for Zhang Xinya. But then he remembered that he had given the car key to Yu Kai, so he turned around and walked into the dormitory. The emotional thread. It couldn't be cut, and it was messy. Therefore, he absolutely put it down for the time being, no longer thinking about it and no longer thinking about it. One day in the future, when he had enough strength to solve the problem, he would awaken Han Qingwu's memory, figure out everything, and solve everything. Sorry, I'm attending China's Federation of Literary and Arts training in Beijing. I was dragged out by a group of gods to drink for a while, so the update time was delayed. Today, I'll temporarily present the third chapter. Tomorrow, at least 5 chapters will be released. I'm looking for recommendation votes for a new week. Chapter 437. It had been more than 10 minutes since Tan Xiu received Zhang Xinya's call. After the two agreed on a time and place, they soon met on the concrete road next to the forest on the campus. Idle. A smile hung on the corner of Zhang Xinya's mouth as she looked at Tang Xiu with sparkling eyes. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "Are you kidding me? How did I become your idol?" Zhang Xinya said with a smile, "Tan Xiu, your playing and singing level is unprecedented and unparalleled. Although I used to have a few idols, the admiration I felt for them was definitely not as strong as the admiration I have for you. If you have time in the future, can you teach me how to play the zither?" "We'll talk about this later," said Tan Xiu. "Where are we going now?" "I've booked a place in the purple fragrant garden," said Zhang Xinya. "Let's have supper first and then go shopping, how about it?" Tan Xiu's mood was a little gloomy, but he didn't object to Zhang Xinya's words. Maybe he would feel better after eating something and walking around. Alright. Because Zhang Xinya didn't drive here, but wore a mask and a pair of black-rimmed glasses to disguise herself, she asked, "Do you have a car?" Pointing at the Land Rover beside him, Tan Xiu bitterly smiled. "The car key is in my classmate's hand. Let's leave on foot first before taking a cab." Zhang Xinya hesitated for a moment before she nodded and said, "All right. The place I chose is a little far from here. You might not be able to make it back in time tonight." Tan Xiu said, "It's okay. I have a house outside the school." "You should be a freshman this year, right?" Zhang Xinya was surprised. "Is it okay not to live on campus?" Tan Xiu said, "It's nothing. You can live on campus. If something happens, or if it's Saturday or Sunday, you can live outside." As the two walked and chatted under the dim streetlights, no one recognized Zhang Xinya. In next to no time, the two of them stopped a taxi and rushed towards the violet fragrant garden. Purple aromatic garden. It was located in the suburbs of Shanghai and covered a large area. A surging river passed through the purple auspicious garden and reached the vast sea. When the taxi drove across the bridge, it stopped in front of a classical-style building amidst the sea of lights. Zhang Xinya hurriedly paid the fare, and the two of them got off the car and walked towards one of the classical pavilions. "The environment here is not bad." Tang Xiu glanced around and exclaimed in admiration. Zhang Xinya smiled and said, "The Purple Aromatic Garden is one of the more popular restaurants in Shanghai. If you really want to rank it, it's definitely in the top 3. However, this place only accepts members, so guests who don't have a membership can't come here to spend money." Tan Xiu said with a faint smile, "So, you're a member here?" "That's right," said Zhang Xinya with a smile. When the Purple Fragrant Garden opened for business, I was invited to cut the ribbon. Therefore, he naturally applied for a diamond card here. Actually, eating here was also divided into different classes. Each membership card had a different level, and the treatment they received was also different. Even the dishes they order are very different. "What are the classes?" Tan Xiu was surprised. "The membership cards here are divided into 4 classes," said Zhang Xinya with a smile. "The lowest class is the silver card. You only need to recharge 100,000 yuan in one go to apply for it. Then from low to high, it's the gold card, diamond card, and emperor card. According to the boss here, guests who can get a gold card need to recharge at least 1 million yuan for the first time. A diamond card needs to be recharged at least 10 million yuan. As for the emperor card, it needs to be at least 100 million yuan. Therefore, having a diamond card here is already very amazing. It's said that no one with an emperor card has appeared until now." Tan Xiu said with a smile, Just to eat here and become a member, you need to recharge 100 million yuan for the first time. This difficulty is too high. No wonder no one has obtained an emperor card until now. Actually, I think it's a bit unrealistic to recharge 10 million yuan in one go. Zhang Xinya shook her head and said, "You're wrong, Tan Xiu. As far as I know, the number of diamond card customers in the purple aromatic garden has already exceeded 100 people." 100 people? Tan Xiu was surprised. Are you kidding me? Don't tell me those people don't take money seriously? How many times do they have to spend here to eat all the 10 million yuan they recharge? You're wrong. Zhang Xinya smiled tenderly. Many large listed companies will hold events every year. They can hold the event here, so they can spend hundreds of thousands or even millions of yuan. Sometimes it's even possible to spend millions. Tan Xiu suddenly understood and said with a smile, "In any case, it's really not worth it to apply for such a high-level membership card here. However, everyone has their own subjective views. I don't think it's worth it, but maybe they think it's worth it. Let's go. I'll also bask in the limelight and see how high the diamond card treatment is." Zhang Xinya smiled and said, "It seems like you're going to rip me off tonight." Tan Xiu smiled. Just as he was about to step through the door, his mobile rang in his pocket. He took it out and slightly furrowed his brows. "Who's calling? You don't want to pick it up?" Zhang Xinya, who stood beside Tan Xiu and saw Tan Xiu's frowning and hesitant expression, quickly asked in a low voice. "Wait for me for a moment. I'll pick it up." Tan Xiu shook his head. After saying that, he turned around and walked outside. After walking 7 or 8 steps, he pressed the answer button and said, "What's the matter?" "Tan Xiu, you played very well." Han Qingwu's tired voice came out of the phone. "I know," replied Tan Xiu lightly. Han Qingwu was silent for a moment and then said, "Tan Xiu, the song you played and sang, Immortal Dream. I think it's very familiar, but I'm sure I've never heard it before. Also, after listening to your song, I'm in a bit of a situation." "What's the situation?" asked Tan Xiu with a frown. "Some blurry pictures appeared in my mind. These pictures are very strange, just like the scenes in those Xianxia movies," said Han Qingwu. "Some people are flying on flying swords, some people are moving clouds and rain, and some people are fighting. In short, I seem to know those people, but I don't know them at the same time. Those scenes seem familiar to me, but they also seem very strange. What the hell is going on?" Tan Xiu's body trembled. His eyes lit up and he said in a deep voice, "Is there anything else besides these? For example, who are the people in the pictures that are very important to you? Are the things in the pictures also important to you?" Han Qingwu hesitated for a moment and then said, "Yes. I can't see his appearance clearly. It's just a figure in the lightning and thunder. And there's also a woman who looks very much like me. She's in pain and despair. She's very unwilling to do something, but she has to do it. That's to attack the person in the lightning and thunder." Memory fragments? From Han Qingwu's description, Tan Xiu understood that the memory of her past life was triggered because of the immortal dream he played. In fact, the person who she couldn't see clearly, who was surrounded by lightning and thunder, might even be himself. "Think again. What else can you think of?" Han Qingwu said, "I can't think of anything else. The more I think about it, the more I feel a splitting headache. I don't know what's going on. It's like there's a voice in my heart telling me not to think about it." Tan Xiu sighed inwardly and lightly said, "I see. I hope you can remember it soon. By the time you remember, it's time for us to settle some things." "What is it?" asked Han Qingwu with a confused expression. Tan Xiu's expression turned cold as he indifferently said, "It's nothing. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up now." After saying that, he pressed the hang up button and put away the mobile phone. A complicated expression appeared on his face. He was a bit surprised about Han Qingwu's situation. After all, the memory of her past life appearing in this life was a very rare occurrence, even among tens of billions of people. Even the immortals in the immortal world, no matter how strong or weak they were, couldn't clearly see the past life. Unless they became a deity. Or, It was that 1 in 10 billion chance. Tan Xiao took a deep breath and dispelled the distracting thoughts in his heart. Although he was very concerned about whether Han Qingwu could restore all the memories of her past life in the future, but since she only got some fragmented memories, it proved that it was not the time to solve the problem with her yet. It was not the time yet. He didn't want to worry about it too early. No way, right? I told you a lot of jokes along the way, and finally made your mood a bit better. How come your mood seems to have fallen into the abyss after just answering the phone? Tell me who made you unhappy, I'll go beat her. Seeing that Tan Xiao came back with an indifferent expression, she immediately said with a wry smile. I'm sorry, I'm fine. Tan Xiao smiled lightly. Since I promised to come out with you, I'll put away my other emotions. There's a beauty treating me tonight, so I'll definitely make you pay for it. If you make me poor, you'll have to support me later, said Zhang Xinya with a charming smile. Tan Xiao let out a faint smile and was about to enter the door when a familiar voice came to his ears from behind. Old Jean, don't dawdle anymore. I've found a good project. If we can operate this series of IPs well, we'll definitely make a lot of money. Moreover, my company's technical team is already going all out to build the best application in the country. At that time, our resources will be focused on promoting on my platform and will definitely be popular. Brother Gu, I also know that the current popular IPs are very popular, but the key is that I don't know anything about it. You suddenly pulled me to invest, and I don't have any confidence in it. Moreover, I have a big project that I'm preparing to start recently, and I don't have enough funds to begin with. I'm afraid that something will go wrong once I allocate another batch of funds. Old Jean, I'm telling you, if you miss this opportunity, you won't get another one. If you don't seize it, then I'll have no choice but to find someone else to cooperate with. Brother Gu, let me think about it. All right. Tonight, the silent nightclub will explode ruthlessly. This is the first chapter. Brothers and sisters, please keep up with the monthly votes and recommendation votes. Chapter 438. While talking, the two of them had already arrived behind Tan Xiao. Upon seeing Tan Xiao blocking their way, the two frowned and immediately bypassed Tan Xiao from both sides, ready to enter. However, Gu Changmin, who was a bit depressed, subconsciously turned his head and glanced at Tan Xiao. However, his footsteps came to a halt at this moment. A surprised look appeared on his face as he stopped and turned around. Brother Tang? Jin Xingkue also stopped upon hearing Gu Changmin's words. He turned around and saw Tan Xiao's face. He was pleasantly surprised and immediately said, It's you, Brother Tang? I didn't expect to bump into you here. I didn't expect to bump into the two of you when I came out for dinner either, said Tan Xiao with a faint smile. Listening to your conversation just now, you seem to have some business to discuss? Gu Changmin touched the bridge of his nose and forced a smile. There's indeed a business to discuss, but this old Jean doesn't want to talk to me. Brother Tang, this is... Tan Xiao glanced at Zhang Xinya. Zhang Xinya took off her black-rimmed glasses and the mask on her face. She then stretched out her hand and smilingly said, Hello, I'm Zhang Xinya, Tan Xiao's friend. Zhang Xinya? Gu Changmin and Jin Xingkue stared blankly for a moment before a stunned expression appeared on their faces. I didn't expect that I would not only see Brother Tang but also a big star tonight. Hello, Miss Zhang. I'm Gu Changmin of Dingshan Media. I've long heard of your great name. Gu Changmin quickly stretched out his hand and shook hands with Zhang Xinya. Jin Xingkue also hurriedly stretched out his hand and smilingly said, Miss Zhang is a world-famous big star and a household name in our country. Being able to meet Miss Zhang here is really a blessing of 3 lifetimes. I'm Jin Xingkue of Jinda Real Estate. Zhang Xinya stared blankly and blankly shook hands with them. Then she turned to look at Tan Xiao. She was from the entertainment circle and naturally knew about Dingshan Media. It was just that she had never seen Dingshan Media's boss, so she didn't know what Gu Changmin looked like. She also knew about Jinda Real Estate because her villa in Shanghai was developed by Jinda Real Estate. The two of them, how could he call Tan Xiao his brother? Tan Xiao smiled and said, Since everyone knows each other, let's go in. Zhang Xinya, if you don't mind, Why don't we have dinner with our two brothers tonight? Of course, as long as it doesn't disturb the two of you. Not at all, not at all. What Brother Tang said is exactly what I was thinking. Let's go together. Gu Changmin and Jin Xingkue quickly replied. Zhang Xinya was a little shocked when she saw how close the two of them were to Tan Xiu. Although she really wanted to have dinner with Tan Xiu alone, it was obviously not a good time to reject him. So she smiled and said, "It's my honor to be able to dine with the two bosses." Miss Zhang, you're Brother Tang's friend, so you're also our friend. Gu Changmin waved his hand. Let's not treat each other like outsiders. In the future, if you have any problems in Shanghai, you can directly look for me. As long as I, Gu Changmin, can do it, even if I have to exhaust all the power of my Dingshan media, I will do it well. Jin Xingkue also heavily nodded and said, "That's right. My Jindao real estate may be comparable to those top companies in the country, but I can't be compared with those real tycoons. But if Miss Zhang encounters any difficulties in Shanghai later, feel free to contact me directly. I'll definitely go all out when the time comes." After saying that, the two of them took out their personal business cards and handed them to Zhang Xinya. Zhang Xinya took the two business cards and saw that there was only a name and a phone number on them. There were no other words such as positions or any other words. She instantly understood that the two of them were not just polite words, but sincerely expressing their stance. Even more so, her heart was as clear as a mirror. The reason why the two of them expressed their stance to her was definitely not because of her identity as a big star. Rather, it was because of Tan Xiu. Because she was Tan Xiu's friend. "Thank you, old brothers, Xinya. If you don't mind, please call me Xinya later." Zhang Xinya suddenly realized that Tan Xiu's proposal to have a meal together was really good. She was able to get to know the two of them tonight, and based on their promise just now, she knew that she had hit the jackpot. As an exceptionally intelligent person, she would naturally climb up the pole and pull closer to them. Good, good, good. The two of them nodded with a satisfied expression on their faces. After entering the antique pavilion, Gu Changmin said with a smile, "Brother Tang, do you want to go to the private box I booked? Although my rank here is not high, I can still enjoy a lot of treatment with a golden card. Xinya has booked a room, so let's go to our place." Tan Xiu said. "She has a diamond card here, so it seems like she can enjoy more things." Diamond card? Gu Changmin was startled inwardly. He then said with a smile, "All right then. It seems that I'll be basking in Xinya's light tonight." A strange expression flashed in Zhang Xinya's eyes. She then said with a smile, "It's my honor to entertain two old brothers." Quickly, the four of them came to the area reserved for diamond card holders. After entering the antique private box, a waiter brought the menu and Zhang Xinya personally ordered the dishes. After the waiter left, Gu Changmin asked with a smile, "Xinya, I know that you're a famous singer with a very high status in the music industry. Do you have any interest in developing in the film industry?" Zhang Xinya indeed had the intention to develop in the film industry recently, but most of her contacts were in the music industry. Even though many entertainment companies wanted to cooperate with her and even offered good conditions, she was still hesitant and hadn't decided yet. "I do have such an idea," said Zhang Xinya with a smile after hearing Gu Changmin's question. "It's just that I don't know much about some domestic film companies, so I haven't decided yet." Gu Changmin's eyes lit up and he immediately said with a smile, "How about signing a contract with my Dingshan media, Xinya? You can rest assured that I'll give you the best treatment. It won't be worse than those first-rate movie stars in the entire entertainment industry. How about it?" This, Zhang Xinya hesitated for a moment. She quickly glanced at Tan Xiu and then said with a smile, "Can you give me some time to consider this matter, Brother Gu? I'll give you an answer by tomorrow night at the latest." "No problem," said Gu Changmin with a smile. After saying that, he quickly glanced at Tan Xiu. "Brother Gu, I accidentally overheard your conversation with Brother Jin outside," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "Do you have any good projects recently?" Gu Changmin stared blankly for a moment. He didn't expect that Tan Xiu would ask him this question. Immediately, A wry smile appeared on his face as he sighed. Yeah. The development of the IP industry chain has reached a hot spot. My professional team has recently purchased a batch of good resources. I've personally investigated it and found that it's highly operable. Also, I have distribution channels and advertisements ready. It's just that I'm short on funds. I have some spare cash, said Tan Xiao with a smile. Gu Changmin stared blankly for a moment before his eyes instantly lit up. He was even a bit excited inwardly as he stared at Tan Xiao and hurriedly asked, "Brother Tang, are you also interested in investing in the IP industry?" Recently, Tang Xiao had learned a lot about the current hot business projects, including the operation of IP, app channels, and the profitability of the company. These two projects even had great potential. If he could manage them well, he would definitely be able to make a lot of money. He was a student, but he was also a businessman. Business was business, and he was naturally interested in the projects that could make him money. This was also the main reason why he proposed to have a meal with Gu Changmin and Jin Xinkui. "I'm somewhat interested," Tan Xiao said with a smile. Gu Changmin slapped his thigh and excitedly asked, "Brother Tang, how much can you invest?" "I dare not say much, but I can invest 1 billion, said Tan Xiao. "But if I want to invest, I won't only invest in IP. I'm also interested in the application project developed by your company." Gu Changmin took a deep breath and seriously said, "No problem. It's not a problem at all. Originally, it's impossible for our company to develop the application project alone, so financing is imperative. If Brother Tang can inject 1 billion, I don't need to look for someone else. The two of us can definitely do it well. I'm going to register a venture capital company in Shanghai recently," said Tan Xiao with a smile. "How about I ask the person in charge of the company to talk to you when the time comes?" "No problem," said Gu Changmin without hesitation. "I'm short on money recently, but the person I value more is you, Brother Tang. I'm sure we can make a lot of money if we cooperate." Jin Xinkui, who was sitting at the side, had a constantly changing expression. Finally, he couldn't bear it anymore and said, "Brother Gu, I just thought about it. I think that investing in IP and application projects is really good. Although I don't have a lot of funds, I believe in Brother Tang's vision since he's willing to invest. I'm also prepared to invest several 100 million yuan. How about it?" Gu Changmin looked at Jin Xinkui with an amused and angry expression. He was very clear about what Jin Xinkui was thinking inside. It was definitely a great thing to be able to tie his business with Tan Xiao. Even if he wouldn't care even if he lost all the money he invested. What he cared about was nothing more than Tan Xiao. "Brother Tang, you see," Gu Changmin threw the issue to Tan Xiao. "I have no objection," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "There's a saying that it's better to be happy together than to be happy alone. It's a good thing that everyone can make money together." "All right, then it's decided," said Gu Changmin with a smile. Zhang Xinya's eyes flickered as she kept glancing at Tan Xiao, Gu Changmin, and Jin Xinkui. She didn't expect that the three of them would actually decide on a project worth several 100 million yuan or even 1 billion yuan in just a few words. Suddenly, she was also a bit moved. "Can you count me in? As a matter of fact, I've also saved some money in recent years. Although it's not much, it's not a problem to take out 200 million yuan. The three of you shouldn't be unwilling to take me in, right?" Tan Xiao and the other two looked at each other in dismay. They didn't expect that Zhang Xinya would unexpectedly join in. However, the three of them didn't have an excuse to refuse Zhang Xinya, so they could only agree. Chapter 439. Zhang Xinya was a bit excited as she got the consent of the three men, but she was also a bit worried. Although she was a popular singer, she had just started her career and her foundation was too shallow. An investment of 200 million yuan was already her limit. Even the two villas in the imperial capital and Guangyang province had to be sold to raise the amount. She was perfectly aware of Tan Xiao's situation. He was definitely rich and overbearing. After all, Tan Xiao's final profit in Hong Kong was more than 10 billion yuan. Gu Changmin and Jin Xingkui were also famous big bosses in Shanghai with a net worth of more than 10 billion yuan. Therefore, they could afford the loss, but she couldn't. However, she believed in her own vision. The probability of making money was much higher than the probability of losing by cooperating with the three of them. She felt that she would regret it later if she were to miss such a good opportunity. At the side, Tang Xiu was clueless about Zhang Xinya's thoughts. After he finished talking with Gu Changmin, he turned to look at Jin Xingkui and smilingly said, "Brother Jin, I just heard that the project you're working on is also short of money?" Jin Xingkui stared blankly for a moment before a glint flashed in his eyes. He then asked, "I don't have enough funds to begin with, and I'm even more short of money if I take out several 100 million yuan to invest in IP and app projects. I'll be very surprised if anyone can invest in it." "Tell me about your project," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "I spent a lot of money to buy a very good piece of land with a very good geographical location," said Jin Xingkui with a smile. "Also, I'm planning to develop a high-end residential area project." Tang Xiu raised his hand and said, "I got it." Jin Xingkui pondered for a moment and then seriously said, "The total investment should be about 3.2 billion yuan. This is without taking into account the land. If I spend more than 2 billion yuan to buy the land, it should be about 5 billion yuan. This was without taking into account the land. If I included the land that I spent more than 2 billion to buy, it should be around 5.5 billion. Also, since my company has other projects, I'm afraid that I'll have to borrow half of the 3.2 billion yuan from the bank." Tan Xiu thought for a moment and said, "Actually, I'm very interested in investing in real estate. My magnificent Tang Corporation also has real estate business. If you are willing to replan and re-prepare, I can consider making a venture capital investment, and the amount will not be less than the investment in Dingshan Media." Jin Xingkui was startled and quickly asked, "Brother Tang, what do you mean by replanning and re-preparing?" Tan Xiu said, "Except for that piece of land, everything else will start from scratch. Of course, the most important thing is the architectural design." This, Jin Xingkui hesitated. Tan Xiu said, "You can leave the architectural design of the high-end residential area to me." Jin Xingkui was stunned and then said in disbelief, You know how to design architectural drawings? Please don't joke around, Brother Tang." He didn't believe it. He didn't believe that Tan Xiu knew how to design architectural drawings. Even if Tan Xiu did, he didn't believe that Tan Xiu could design a good architectural drawing. It must be noted that the architectural design of his plot of land was done by hiring a very famous domestic designer at a high price, and it took a long time to complete. Furthermore, he was very satisfied with the architectural design. He also firmly believed that once it was built, it would be popular among the masses, and the sales problem would be reduced a lot. Tan Xiu looked at Jin Xingkui's expression and fell into silence for a while. Then he lightly said, "The original suburbs of Blue City have now been developed and built into a new city. The architectural design of those buildings was drawn by me." What? Jin Xingkui was a dignified big boss with a net worth of 10 billion yuan. Yet, upon hearing Tan Xiu's words, he jumped up from his chair. Disbelief burst out from his eyes, and his heart violently trembled. Tan Xiu said, "If you don't believe me, you can contact the main person in charge of the project. He's the big boss of Blue City's Long Group, Long Hanwen. He'll tell you the answer." Jin Xingkui gasped for a few breaths. He immediately took out his mobile and dialed Long Hanwen's private number. Both of them were in the real estate business and had a very high position in the business world, so they had been in contact many times before. "Boss Jin, what's wrong with you today? Why did you call me?" Long Hanwen's voice came out of the phone. Jin Xingkui turned on the loudspeaker and hurriedly asked, "Brother Long, there's something I want to ask you. Please, you must tell me the truth." Long Hanwen could hear the seriousness in Jin Xingkui's tone, so he replied with a sinking tone, "Brother Jin, please tell me. I'll never conceal it if I can." Jin Xingkui quickly asked, "I want to know who designed the blueprint of the new city in Blue City that your Long family is currently developing?" "I can't tell you," Long Hanwen replied without hesitation. Jin Shinkue's breathing stagnated as a forced smile appeared on his face. He then said, "Brother Long, I'll ask in another way. Is the designer of the blueprint surnamed Tang?" Tan Xiu shook his head and waved to Jin Shinkue. He grabbed the phone in his hand and said, "Uncle Long, I'm Tan Xiu. You don't need to conceal it from Brother Jin due to some special reasons." "Tan Xiu? How come you're with Jin Shinkue? Do you know each other?" Long Hanwen's surprised voice came. "Yes, I do," Tan Xiu said. Long Hanwen forced a smile and said, "It's because you told me not to tell others about the blueprint of the new city, so I didn't tell you. But since you've requested it, then I don't need to hide it anymore. Give the phone to Jin Shinkue, I'll tell him." Jin Shinkue quickly said, "Brother Long, the phone is on loudspeaker. Tell me, I'm listening." Long Hanwen said with a smile, "Brother Jin, the blueprint of the new city is indeed from Tan Xiu's hands. In this world, I'm afraid there's no one who can design such a good blueprint except him." Jin Shinkue gulped down his saliva and looked at Tan Xiu with a bit of awe in his eyes. One must know that he was engaged in the real estate business, so he naturally knew what the architectural design of the Blue City's new city meant. It meant that the Blue City's new city's architectural complex would become the landmark of the new city. It also meant that the final profit of the big project would be terrifying. "Thank you, Brother Long. I'll treat you to a meal some other day to express my gratitude." Long Hanwen said with a smile, "Forget about the meal. I'll be satisfied if you can bring Tan Xiu to see me. This brat is busier than me. I've been wanting to see him for a long time, but I can't even find his shadow." "Hee hee." Jin Shinkue let out an embarrassed smile. Tan Xiu said with a smile, "Uncle Long, I'll go back to Star City for a holiday in October. I'll treat you to a drink." Good. Then it's a deal." Long Hanwen laughed. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiu looked at Jin Shinkue and asked, "Did you hear it? What's your decision now?" Jin Shinkue said without hesitation, "If you can design the blueprint of the Blue City's new city, Brother Tang, I'll replan and prepare everything according to your plan. No, I'm willing to do it even if it's worse than the one in Blue City's new city." Tan Xiu said with a smile, "My architectural design won't be bad." Jin Shinkue nodded with excitement and said, "Then I'll tell the company to stop first. Brother Tang, I'll wait for your design." "That's right, how long will it take?" "I need to know the area of the land as well as the surrounding traffic and environment," said Tan Xiu. "Also, I'll take some time to check it out. If there's no accident, I should be able to hand it over to you before October 1st. Jin Shinkue praised, "No problem. You set the time and I'll wait for your call. I'll personally take you to see the land when you're free." "All right," Tan Xiu said with a smile. At the side, after the two finished talking, Gu Changmin directly said, "Brother Tang, Brother Jin, I'll take the two of you to play with the IP and app projects. You can't abandon me for your real estate projects. I'll figure out a way to get the money, and you must count me in." Jin Shinkue burst into laughter and said, "Brother Gu, I was the one who begged you to invest just now. But now that the tables have turned, how come it's your turn to beg me?" Don't worry. I have no problem with it as long as Brother Tang agrees. Brother Tang just said that we can make money together." With an envious expression, Zhang Xinya said, "I really envy you big bosses. It's such a good project, but it's a pity that I can't participate in it anymore. Taking out 200 million yuan to invest in the IP and app projects is already my limit. Otherwise, I'll have to sell my last villa in Hong Kong." "There's no end to the money," Tan Xiu said with a light smile. "Just do what you can." Zhang Xinya smiled and said, "That's right." Zhang Xinya smiled. Soon after, they no longer talked about business matters and chatted about some interesting topics. As a superstar, Zhang Xinya's knowledge and experience were very good. As for Jin Shinkue and Gu Changmin, they were both cunning businessmen in the business world, and their experience was even deeper. Although Tan Xiu's EQ was not that high, he had lived in the immortal world for 10,000 years after all. Furthermore, he had experienced a lot of things after returning to Earth, so his mentality had improved a lot compared to before. Therefore, The four chatted with great interest and got along very well. At 10 p.m., after everyone had eaten and drank to their heart's content, they separated outside the purple fragrance garden. Tan Xiu took the car key left by Jin Xinkue and watched the designated driver take Jin Xinkue and Gu Changmin away. Then, he turned to look at Zhang Xinya and said with a smile, "You didn't drink, so you can drive." Zhang Xinya took the car key and said with a smile, "Thank you for today, Tan Xiu." "What are you thanking me for?" Tan Xiu stared blankly and was confused. "It's because of you that I got such a good investment opportunity," Zhang Xinya said with a smile. "Working with big bosses like you to make a living, I believe that I'll be greeted by spring all year round. Superstar, you're really good at talking," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "I'm afraid I'm only good at talking," Zhang Xinya said with a smile. "But you're simply my role model in life. You're amazing in all aspects. You know what? I've begun to worship you." You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.